The following is brought to you by the Social Suplex Podcast Network.
Hey, what's up? This is Jeff Cobb, and you're listening to Keepin It Strong Style.
Yo, this is Rich Latta from One Nation Radio. This is brought to you by the Social Suplex Podcast Network. We present to you the Ace of Podcasts, Keepin It Strong Style. Let's go. It's the Ace of Podcasts, Keepin It Strong Style. Covering New Japan, they ready to hold it down. Jeremy Donovan and the young boy Josh. Come and hit a job out in bury all the frauds. From the Tokyo Dome over to the G1. Social Suplex is the network where we can get it done. I'ma chill and let them have it, cause this is just an intro. Keeping the strong style, 6 stars from the get-go, boy. Yeah, from Tampa Bay to the Tokyo Dome, this is Keeping It Strong Style with your hosts, Jeremy Donovan and the young boy Joshua Smith. And thank you for listening.
Welcome to Keeping It Strong Style, the Ace of Podcast on the Social Suplex Podcast Network. Jeremy Donovan here with the young boy Josh Smith. On today's show, we'll review nights 15 through 19 of G1 Climax 36 and cover all this news in the world of New Japan Pro Wrestling. Please support our show by subscribing and following the Social Suplex Podcast Network and Keeping It Strong Style on the podcast app of your choice, and leave a rating and review. You can also get all the network's podcasts and newsletter over at socialsuplex.com. If you enjoy this podcast, please consider making a one-time or monthly donation by visiting socialsuplex.com/donate and click on the donate button under Keeping It Strong Style logo. And we are streaming live right now on patreon.com/KI Strong Style. If you want to watch our show live or listen without ads, you can sign up at patreon.com/KI Strong Style. Young boy, how you doing, man?
It would help if I unmuted myself. I didn't want to have the same snafu. Let me turn that down. I'm coming in a little hot. I didn't want to have the same snafu I had last week, so I went ahead and responsibly muted myself, and then I was not ready once you asked me that question. But all in all, doing well. Happy to be here. Between you and me, Jeremy, been going through some, well, I guess it's not between you and me. It's between you, me, and the listenership.
And the hundreds and hundreds.
I would assume we have thousands, but
I was trying to be modest.
Yeah, the 1001, just barely breaking the barrier. But us, and then Jones, of course, he's within earshot.
Yeah.
Been going through a little bit of a funk mentally, I would say. Maybe it's not always the best time to have that occur in the middle of the G1 Climax coverage, but little by little, day by day, been feeling a little bit better. So working on things and feeling decent and ready to discuss. And I know we're not ready to jump into it this moment, but I know that you really, really, really liked, maybe even borderline loved the finals of this year's G1 Climax. But, I'll start off before we even jump into it, because I still want to ask what you got going on, but perhaps one of the greatest matches I've ever seen in my life. So I'm excited to discuss that and the, exciting creative that we have going on in what is Shinihan. That being said, what's going on in your life? What would you like to share with the listenership before we jump into things?
Well, tomorrow is my birthday, so turning the big 3-7 tomorrow on the 18th. So as most of you are probably listening, it's probably already happening as you're listening. So so that's what's coming up for me. Just getting older, getting grayer.
I believe I'm older than you, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, it'll be okay. It's working out. It's not too bad.
Yeah. So if anybody wants to, give a little birthday gift, hit up the red circle, hit up the Patreon.
Yeah. How about this? If anybody would like to donate to the Red Circle for this month, which is August, I will not partake, and neither will our social media manager. That all 100% proceeds will go to the Jeremy Donovan birthday fund. Now, if you decide that you would like to recur those blessings and give us a little taste, then that will benefit all of us. Which that goes to me, that goes to Jeremy, and our social media manager Emily. Shout out to Emily. She is back from vacation, so she's no longer not doing what she's supposed to be doing, and she's
showing up to work.
In fact, on top of things once again.
Yeah,
she's showing up to work. She's putting in the hours. So yeah, give us a little taste, give Jeremy a taste, and with that being said, anything else that you got going on?
No, that's pretty much it. I think we need to jump into what we got here. So there's a lot to kind of cover, and I know there's probably a lot to dive in with the semifinals, the finals, Tenzan's retirement. And so, where we left off last week, we're heading into the second to last B block nights. And so what we're going to do here is we're going to kind of go through the results, talk through the scenarios of what led to the semifinals and finals, and then kind of jump into it. So we won't kind of give a full breakdown of each of these matches. Maybe we can quickly say if there was something we liked about it, but I think we're just going to run through it and kind of build to the semis and finals and the Tenzan retirement, so we can kind of jump into the meat of what people really want to hear about.
Well, I do think that the last 3 nights of block action were noteworthy. So I definitely agree with you. We already talked about this off the air. We're gonna run through just quickly the results and the standings and scenarios. But I haven't looked at the rundown. Are we doing, because it's been our tradition in the past, are we going through the competitors and doing grades?
Yeah, we can. I don't have them listed out, but I can pull up the list. But yeah, so right now we'll go through.
So I think that what if you don't mind, what I think would be good is when we go through that would be a good time at that point. We'll have already talked about the finals and the semis and, and the breaking news. There was a lot of angles and returns, but then I think it'd be good to just, we don't have to give full match breakdowns, but, give some general thoughts. Cause I don't want to skimp out on what happened. I know it's a lot to cover, but I don't want to skip out because it had some pretty impressive performances during those last 3 block nights.
Yeah, definitely. Well, let's jump into it. So we had night 15, second to last B block night. And so this was August 11th from the Niso Highway Arena, a reported attendance of 2,310. We had Great Okan and Jacob Austin Young defeating Yasuda and Bolton Oleg in 7 minutes 12 seconds. Unbound Company, Ishimori and Shingo defeating Kanemaru and Sanada in 6 minutes and 21 seconds. And we had Zane J and Jake Lee defeating Yota Tsuji and Daiki Nagai in 5 minutes and 14 seconds. And Goto and Matsumoto defeated Yuto Ice and Gato in 7 minutes and 9 seconds. And then we got into the B block action. We had Zack Sabre Jr. defeating Hanare in 15:32. So this brought Zack Sabre Jr. up to 10 points, up to 8 points. And then we had Drilla Maloney defeating Ren Narita in 11:54. That brought Maloney up to 10 points and kind of locked Maloney in. So we kind of talked about last week,
right,
with Umino being out, there's no last match for him, but this was his last match, his last chance. So at this point, getting 10 points was very crucial because other guys were kind of in that range. So he locked himself in there at 10 points. Then we had Aaron Wolf defeating Callum Newman, which was a kind of a big upset. I know last week I was kind of leaning towards Wolf beating Newman, and you were like, yeah, no way he's going to, beat the former champion, but it was Wolf time, baby. And he got the big win here.
I said that initially, but let's let the record clearly show that once we started going through the scenarios and how the math needed to work out, I jumped on board and you converted me to your way of thinking.
To Wolfism.
Wolfism, yeah.
Yeah, so Wolf gets a big win there. He got up to 8 points. And then the main event, we had the Heat Storm, Yuya Uemura defeating Gabe Kidd, 22 minutes, 10 seconds. And this got Uemura up to 10 points. And with this win, it also officially eliminated Zack Sabre Jr. So I know, again, last week, I know we were trying to work the math out and see like, what happens if Zack wins and he loses and what can he get to. But ultimately, because he was so behind the 8 ball, even though he was making the comeback trail, his comeback kind of started a little too late. And so with him only ending with 8 points on this night, the max he can get to 10. And then now you had Uemura at 10, you had Gabe at 10, you got Drilla at 10, Narita at 10. So there was just no way mathematically with the tiebreakers, even if there ended up being some kind of crazy multi-man way tie at 10, Zack Sabre Jr. was mathematically eliminated.
One has to assume that this is probably the result of the Shota Umino injury and them having to rework a few of the the bookings and the standings. And I'm sure that Zack was probably a victim of, having to basically, not saying he would have gone through, not saying that he was going to, be a huge factor going down the stretch, but I believe he probably would have had a better standing and they had to rework the math to make things work. Thematically, though, we've talked about this and it came to basically bear itself out that the theme of this tournament was the young Reiwa generation. So Zack is sort of the symbolic, veteran, basically ace, foreign ace level, former generation guy, akin to basically a Goto or a Shingo in the A block, guys that historically you would expect to be alive towards the end or maybe make it to the semis. Zack fits that mold in the B block. And so him not doing as well as expected fits the theme of this tournament because it's very much akin to what happened in the A block with, Sonata and some of the others.
Yeah, I think a lot of people were, looking at some of your former champions like a Goto, like a Shingo, and it's like, yeah, these guys were recently world champion. Shingo was recently in a semifinal run. Could these guys, obviously, it was kind of that tension of like, yeah, do you pay respect to the established guys and your former champions, or is it full on with the young guys? And so, yeah, we definitely saw that story play out in the A block. And so, yeah, so same thing happened here in the B block with Zack Sabre Jr.
Now, I do have myself a little beverage, so if you hear some ice shaking, this reminds me of the time when Michael Scott was... Jeremy's actually walking off, so he's not going to hear my joke. So I actually started this little tangent to pop him, so maybe I'll hold off on that for a moment. But going into the block finale, Narita, Newman, Uemura, Kidd, and Maloney, they're all sitting at 10 points. And this kind of sets up a scramble for the final two semifinal spots. So that's going to take us into G1 Climax 36, Night 16, August 12th, A block finale in Act City Hamamatsu. The attendance on that evening was 2075. I was getting ready to go through the rundown on the final A block night. But Jeremy, I don't know if you recall when Michael Scott put in his resignation to Dunder Mifflin and he started kind of phoning it in and he was drinking on the job. And I remember he's sitting there, I believe, yeah, it's definitely Jim. He like pours himself some scotch and he's like, clink it, clink it, clink it, clink it. Come on.
Yeah.
Come on. But so Unbound Company, Drill Maloney and Daiki Nagai defeat Nakahara and Yano. Hartley Jackson and Zack Sabre Jr. defeat Matsumoto and Aaron Wolf. Unbound Company, Geto and Oscar defeat Masatori Yasuda and Yuya Uemura. Jacob Austin Young and Hanare defeat the UE's Zane J and Callum Newman. And then that took us into A block action. So Sonata defeats Shingo Takagi 12-18. Both men eliminated at this point, but brings Sonata standing to something a little bit more equal. Goto defeats Yuto Ice 10-08, a match that, again, Yuto Ice had talked about people like Shingo being an inspiration for how he wrestled his style. Goto's very much in that mold, but Goto picks up the win there. Yota Tsuji wrestles Jake Lee in something that could have been a spoiler, but he defeats Jake Lee 13-58. And Tsuji clinches. At this point, he hadn't quite clinched the A block, but he was clinched to pretty much go to the semifinals. Actually, that was a little bit dependent on what happened with Bolton in the next match, but he sits at 12 points. Great Khan in 1730 pulls a major upset over Oleg Boltin via countout. And this was the match that basically said Tsuji is a lock. Regardless of what happens in the main event, he's going to the semis. It just depends on whether he's A1 or A2. So the main event here would be a win and you're in situation. We did have a quick question from next_astronaut623. Why does New Japan not push Hinare and Oleg more?
Well, I mean, when it comes to Boltin and Oleg, I think that we've seen a increased push this year. I feel like he's been getting bigger spots. He was heavily highlighted in this G1. I mean, he had a lot of semi-main events, main events. He beat the IWGP heavyweight champion in the main event of Korakuen Hall. To me, he's getting a pretty good push. And, you know, I think the thing with Hinare, historically, he's always kind of been injured at the wrong times. I mean, obviously, there's never really a right time to get injured, but I feel like anytime he would pick up momentum, he kind of got injured. And so I feel like a lot of his pushes have been start and stop. There's been a lot of gimmick changes. You know, there was Toa Hinare, Aaron Hinare. I feel like he's kind of been through a lot, but I feel like right now, I mean, he's getting pushed. I mean, he's 1/2 tag champs, 1/3 of the Never champions. He's, the New Zealand heavyweight champion. Also, nothing really to do with New Japan, but he has that title as well. And so I feel like he's in a pretty strong position right now. I mean, he and Okan beat the Knockout Brothers, stopped their hot run. So I do feel like he is getting somewhat of a push, and I don't know if they see Hinare at a level to where they're like, we want to put him in main events. And it's kind of been a thing where it's almost something like we talked about with Dave Finlay, where it's like Finlay was in that kind of mid-carder, happy babyface role for so long. It took a lot of work and a lot of time for people to finally turn around on him as a legitimate heel main eventer in New Japan. And I think it's almost the same thing with Hinare, where he's kind of been in that upper mid-card, never-tier tag team kind of role for so long that if they were to try to pull a trigger and right now be like, yeah, he's going to main event, Sumo Hall, he's going to, be the world champion, I think there would be a disconnect for some people.
Yeah, those are all valid points. Again, you mentioned Hinare's injuries. As soon as he was towards the tail end of his Young Lion run, he tore his Achilles, and that set him back quite a bit.
Right, never went on a real excursion.
Yeah, they never sent him on an excursion. They graduated him, but it was one of those quasi graduations. And the thing is with Hinare, he's and I don't mean this in a disrespectful way whatsoever. I'm a big fan of him, but he has been historically limited in what style of wrestling he could do. There are also barriers that exist within the company. Like, they've never really pushed someone with his ethnicity historically. Like, they'll push white guys, and historically they haven't really done a great job elevating and pushing a lot of black superstars. And he's one of the first that's like oceanic like himself. The forerunner was Fale. Fale's a giant. So, trying to figure out how to connect him with the domestic audience, figure out how to make that character work. And it's evident that on some level they had apprehensions about whether it was the injuries or whether it was, like a cultural thing. There was apprehensions about how high we can push him. They really slow rolled him for many, many, many years. But I think off the back of his hard work, he eventually got to where he's at now. And I don't see any reason that I don't have a belief that they're not going to elevate him and continue to push him. Now, I think he does fulfill a mid-card role because I think there are some limitations with how you can use a talent like him. But I think what he brings to the table is very valuable in New Japan, especially with some of the older guard that is starting to, leave, especially like Ishii.
Yeah.
As far as the old Bolton thing goes, I don't have much more to add beyond you, Jeremy, but I could definitely say that it's taken them a bit to elevate him.
Yeah.
And it is true that they haven't pushed him as a true blue main eventer, but they've given him a lot over the years. Early title runs, wins over Tanahashi before he was even on a retirement tour. And the last 2 years, he's, been very much towards the top of the block. And in this one specific instance, now, if you want to judge, his entire run in totality and say you're not happy with how they've handled him and pushed him, valid. If you want to say you're not happy, if you're saying that they don't push him off the back of him not advancing in this tournament, I don't think that that's valid, because this has been a monumental elevation for the guy for the same reasons Jeremy just mentioned. And you have to think about it. The winner of the block, or the winner of the G1, came out of the A block. So that's one. There's only 2 slots. And the only other option would be to have him go in over Tsuji. And I think for Tsuji's sake, as a newer IWGP, new generation IWGP champion, it wouldn't serve him very well to have him not go into the semifinal. So I personally think they pushed him as much as you possibly could for a guy that was not going to make it into the play-in rounds.
Yeah.
That being said, it takes us to the main event here. So Oiwa defeats Konosuke Takeshita 15-11. With that, Oiwa wins the head-to-head tiebreaker over Tsuji to grab the second A block semifinal spot. So, quick question from Staleburger Bun: is it okay to like Takeshita now?
Yeah, I mean, I think it was always okay to like Takeshita. I know the New Jahidin has had an agenda out for him, and even we've seen the responses, even just with the domestic crowd. They've been slow to take to Takeshita, but I feel like they've really turned that around, especially with this tournament. And I think the way he's positioned, there are some nights where he was starting to get cheered in there over certain people. And so, yeah, I think you could have always liked him. And I think, yeah, now is definitely a great time to get on the Takeshita bandwagon and get behind him. And I think they're finally starting to figure out how to utilize him in New Japan to a point where, all right, we want him to be a face. We've aligned him with Hantai. We're not having him beat all our guys. He's losing to Oiwa. He's lost to Bolton. He's losing to some of our young guys. And so we're kind of actually, initiating him more and not kind of making him seem like he's this AEW superstar that has to beat everybody. He's only going to show up every once in a while. So he's working more towards, he's in Hantai. I think they've done a good job now of kind of really acclimating him to the New Japan fans.
Correct me if I'm wrong. Oiwa did not beat Tsuji in the tournament, correct?
Yeah, he lost to Tsuji, yeah.
Okay, so then when I misunderstood. So the tiebreaker that he won was over other guys that had similar point totals to him. I'm assuming that was probably Oleg Bolton.
Yeah.
Okay, so that meant Tsuji was A1, Oiwa was A2. They both advanced from the A block to the semifinals in Ryogoku. I don't have much more to add to the Takeshita question. I'll just say last year when there were issues with how he was being, it's always been creative is the issues that we had, not him as a personality. And we talked about it last week. They've seemed to correct that, but far be it from us. We've always historically stated one of the best wrestlers in the world. Yeah. So we're happy to have him.
And that first G1 he did, he came off levels ahead of everybody. The talent was never an issue.
And if you notice, no slight to him, he had a fantastic tournament. That gap has closed in the past 2 years. Not saying he's not at the top of the class, but there are multiple young generational stars who are right there on his tails right now. Last thing, they mentioned that he worked a DDT show the night before. You got to wonder, in kayfabe, was that a mistake? Overextending himself, maybe taking Oiwa a little bit light.
Yeah.
And then, Jeremy, take us through night 17 block action.
Yep. So we jump into the B block final night, and Ethan Saber, I do see your question there, and I'll pull it up when we get to the main event. So night 17, August 13, Korakuen Hall, attendance of 1,494. We had Hiroki Goto and Matsumoto defeating Bolton Oleg and Masatori Asuda. We had Sanada, Sho, and Kanemaru defeating Takeshita, Yano, and Taisi Nakahara. We had Shingo, Yuta Ice, and Ishimori defeating Okan, Jacob Austin Young, and Zane J. Oiwa and Hartley Jackson defeating Tsuji and Daiki Nagai. And then we got into the final B block action. So we had Zack Sabre Jr. defeating Aaron Wolf via a crucifix hold, 1544. And this got ZSJ up to 10 points. So kind of like what we were thinking, you want Zack to end with a winning record, be above 500, have something respectable. So that happened, but he was out. But when you look back at the record books, 10 years from now, I don't think people are going to remember, was Zach actually out? You're going to see he was in that 10-point mix of everybody else. It's like, oh yeah, he was up there with people. So ending with the 10 points. And we had a question here.
Pepperidge Farms remembers.
We had a question from Next Astronaut 623. Why can't Aaron Wolf learn how to intermittent fast, proper diet, and or weight training?
Well, I mean, this is obviously a slight at his, build and weight, body shaming. I don't condone body shaming on this show. I am sure if he was inclined to do those things, it would be very presumptuous of us to assume that the man is not intelligent enough or has the means and capabilities to do those things.
Yeah, Ethan Taylor saying, I like big beefy boys, IDGAF. So yeah, and we've talked about this with, the different body types and having a more bigger, burly guy. And, I don't think he looks completely sloppy out there. And he's still super athletic. Like, the things he can do at his size is pretty impressive. So, I mean, I don't think the look is a problem for him right now. And I think the conditioning is there in his matches. His athleticism hasn't really dropped. So I'm fine with the look. And then next matchup here, we had
I will say, it in this match, with the grappling, we'll talk about the match in a little bit, but the build was noticeable. It was noticeable, but I don't think it matters to the domestic audience.
Yeah, they see him, as the judo Olympic star, and yeah, I don't think it hurts.
Mm-hmm.
So after that, we had Gabe Kidd defeating Ren Narita in 2 minutes and 11 seconds. So, big crowd brawl before the actual official match started. Got in the ring pretty quick. Gabe puts Narita away. So with this win, Gabe Kidd advanced to 12 points. And we had a question from Live Valuably 381. Do you think Ren Narita is being left behind compared to the other new gen?
Yeah, as of right now, it seems that way. Again, I thought this was his highlight of the tournament, this particular match, but feels very much like he's at a crossroads right now to kind of decide, do I want to gamble on myself and really push to be more than what I am right now? Or am I happy to just be kind of hamstrung by the gimmick that they have given me and just find myself in a comfortable role long-term with this company?
Yeah, I think he's going to have to look in the mirror and really decide that. And yes, obviously you can definitely point to the gimmick and be like, all right, well, yeah, he's kind of hamstrung by this thing. He has to do the cheating and the push-up bar and all that stuff. But like we've been saying for years and years, there's a way to be a compelling, nasty cheating heel without it affecting the match quality and not having great matches. And so, yeah, I think that he kind of has to figure out, how, yeah, I'm kind of stuck with this gimmick, but how do I elevate it to the point where people can see my talent and it's not a case of, oh yeah, Narita just plain out sucks. Because I do think he's talented, and I do think that there's a lot of criticism on him right now, which a lot of it is earned, but I look back at some of those strong matches we watch and some of his Young Lion matches and the style he was working, and even like some of the TV title stuff, and I'm like, there's something there with that guy, bell to bell. You can't tell me that he's a bad worker. So it's like, what do we need to do to figure out how to emphasize his strengths? And I don't think the House of Torture gimmick is emphasizing his strengths.
Well, it was very telling that this was the match on this B block final where you had the two highest point total individuals facing off. And if either one of them were intending to advance, you would think that would be a semi or a main event on the evening. And when the card order came out and it showed that this was like third from the top and you had Yuya and Callum ahead of them, you kind of knew what those results were going to wind up being.
Yeah. Ethan Thaber saying Kid versus Narita, that 1G1 where Sonata sweep the block was my favorite match, that block. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was good. And then after that, we had Yuya Uemura defeating Oscar in 17-12. So with this victory, Uemura advanced to 12 points. And then into the main event, we had Callum Newman defeating Hanare 23-04 for Newman to get to 12 points. And so with the tiebreaker scenario working out, we had Callum Newman and Yuya Uemura advancing from the B block, which leads into a question from Ethan Saber saying, for the final B block night, despite the match being amazing, I thought Callum beating Hinari was a lock. Was there a different match you would have preferred in the main event, or was the order fine?
The only match I would have preferred in the main event would be Zach and Aaron, provided they had bigger stakes to fight for, given where they were in the trajectory of like the point totals. It didn't make sense.
Yeah. And I think based off of, exactly what you said, with the points and where everything was, and Hinari, and again, this is probably, I think, even though being out, Hinari had gotten so up there in the block. I mean, he was leading the block at one point. It was like, it made a ton of sense for him to kind of be in that main event spot when you're in kind of situation.
I wonder if Shota and Drilla might have main evented that evening, but we move on. Yeah.
So we get Newman and Uemura advancing, with Newman being B1 and Uemura being B2. And so that would make it Oiwa versus Newman and Tsuji versus Uemura for the semifinal nights, which was August 15th in Ryogoku Sumo Hall, packed house of 7,777. So show opened up.
Look, Jeremy, I would just like to point this out. Fantastic number for this era. They sold out the configuration that they have in Sumo Hall. Historically speaking, though, Sumo Hall can fit quite a bit more individuals in that building. Historically, a sellout for New Japan, depending on configuration, could be anywhere between like 9,000. 9.5 was like historically considered a sellout, all the way up to like 12.5. Now, here's the thing with that. Sumo Hall is a sumo environment. The way the seating is set up is that they're boxes with pads on the ground that you share with other individuals. This setup typically would have like 2 people in that box. They're very tight squeezes. And when you open up the entire configuration, you have to have 4 people in that box, which is like excruciating. I understand it's not as pleasurable or as convenient a viewing experience, but I have to point out the fact that it's like they didn't do the same kind of numbers that they historically are capable of doing. Now, I do think that because the fervor for specifically the Tenzan retirement was big enough, they sold this out. I think if they'd opened up to a bigger configuration, they probably would have sold more tickets. So it's not a slight on them, but I do think it's funny when you say it's a sellout, but the building is capable of holding like 5,000 more people at its peak. To me, not a real sellout.
Yeah, it's kind of like what MLW does, where they will go to a big building, set it up for like 1,000 and be like, we got a sold out building. And also, this was not to that extreme, but yeah, it's a similar situation like that where, the configuration was sold out, but not the full capacity of the building. But again, overall, this G1 tour did very good numbers year to year.
They're up. Yeah, year over year, they're up. So it's not, I'm not trying to throw I'm not even throwing shade at what they did. I'm kind of throwing shade at like, I don't think you should call it a sellout when you use a configuration that's not really the maximum of what the building can hold. Unless you have unless it's WrestleMania and you got a stage that's cutting off a vast majority of the building, which they don't do that. I don't think you should call it a sellout.
Yeah, because even me, because I was hearing, that, the first night sold out so quickly. I was like, oh, wow. Like, I was, expecting traditional sellout numbers. So when I heard them say on the call, we have a packed 7,777, I'm like, I thought that building could hold more. But whatever. It is what it is. Great house here, packed house. And on this night, we had a lot of guys returning on the tour, a lot of the juniors and a lot of other heavyweights that weren't on the other cards or in the tournament. And also, we had a lot of angles and progression happening here. So the opening match, we had Great Okan, Jacob Austin Young, Hinari, and Francesco Akira defeating Yasuda, Tyson Nakahara, Goto, and Yoshihashi. So keeping the tag champion strong here, and Akira picking up the win. So maybe getting him ready for something. Then we had House of Torture, Sho, Ren Narita, Doki, and Sanada defeating Taichi, Takeshita, Taguchi, and El Desperado in 9 minutes and 24 seconds. Taguchi coming in with the DT Universal Championship. So I think that's the perfect promotion for him. If he just wants to kind of stay there, that'd be great. But the big story here was, we had the House of Torture win. Post-match, they're doing the beatdown on Takeshita. And out comes formerly Dragon Gate's Shun Skywalker. There have been lots of rumors and speculations that Skywalker was going to be on his way to New Japan. I think just with his look and gimmick, a lot of people also speculated that he might be a great fit for the House of Torture. And he comes out here and, he joins in on the beatdown and gets some mic and saying that, he is House of Torture. And then eventually, you had some Hantai guys making the save for Takeshita. And through a lot of his kind of backstage promos, he's essentially saying, he wants to take Takeshita out. And it kind of seems like they might be positioning him to be the new front man of this unit.
Absolutely. I mean, again, it kind of this has been speculated for quite a while. A little bit surprising that it's taking place here at the end of the G1 Climax tour, because historically, you normally would think that the G1 Climax is a good place as you're rolling into the final, few dates of the year, that you would set up a lot of angles and storylines. Once upon a time, they did used to do that. But in recent times, we always speculate this is a time where this person might return. They might do this, they might do that. They usually don't do anything like that. For many years now, they've kind of just focused primarily on the finals or the semifinals. So that we sort of saw that trend be upended a little bit on these final 2 nights here. But so in a certain sense, logically, it makes sense. It was just, to me, a little surprising, because I would have expected, if he was coming in, for them to do that a little later. But I think this is a great place for them to have done that, because it does make sense that you'd want to, create some excitement and freshness going into the final few, the last quarter of the year.
Yeah, I think you want to, we all kind of talk about the fall and trying to make the fall exciting, and based off a lot of the angles and what's coming up for the fall, they've done a great job of getting things geared up for that season. So obviously they're leaving the trails there for Takeshita and Shun Skywalker. Then following that, we had Yo, Toriano, Togi Makabe, Yuji Nagata, and Master Wato defeating Shingo Takagi, Gedo, Taiji Ishimori, Oscar, and Yuto Ice. And so the big thing here, you had Yano getting the pin over Oscar. And so it looks like, we're getting one last ride here for the most violent players. It seems like Togi Makabe and Toriano are going to be at play in the tag team title picture. So kind of surprising, especially, considering how strong KOB has been and both great G1s. And you would think that they'd kind of be right back on the trail. I mean, they're still going to be in the tag title mix, but kind of surprising here to have Yano, who's kind of been on the back burner, I would say, this year, getting the win over him.
Yeah. And what's funny is we saw some post-match angles just the night prior between Yuto Ice and Makabe. That was, them breaking out and brawling at the end of the bell. And a few months ago, that was happening on some of the Road 2 shows. And I pointed out at the time, I was like, that's kind of interesting, because it doesn't seem that it's leading to anything. I had speculated at the time it was just one of those things that they tend to do, where it's like, hey, this guy's not in the mix right now. We have some lower card dads or different people that are not going to really factor into anything. So we'll just let them go out there and do something to kind of spice things up and have a little mini feud, but it's not going to lead to anything. And that's what I thought this was going to be. But they were planting the seeds for this. I don't recall exactly when it was, but it was earlier this year. And it's interesting that it's sort of paying off here now, but it's also I don't know. Look at who it is.
Yeah, Ethan, they were saying foaming at the mouth for this one. And I did skip over a tag match. So before that match, we had Gabe Kidd and Wheeler Yuta of the Death Riders, defeating Drilla, Maloney, and Daiki Nagai. So continuing to see the Gabe-Drilla feud continue with, Drilla getting the win over Gabe earlier in the G1 and kind of everything that went down after that triple threat at Dominion. And then Wheeler Yuta here making the trip to support Gabe Kidd and give him some Death Rider assistance here. So, yeah, Wheeler Yuta getting the win over Daiki Nagai. Also, the last time we saw Yuta in New Japan, he was a part of Best of the Super Junior, going 5-4 in his block, but clearly positioned here now. It's more of a heavyweight and assisting Gabe Kidd here.
One thing, I just want to point this out. So like 11,500 is like the historic reported capacity for Sumo Hall, Ryogoku, Kaguga-kan. But prior to the to COVID in like 2017, 2016, they were doing 10,000 seat attendances for some of the bigger, Omega and Naito matches.
So yeah, good. Yeah, good. That's kind of what we were talking about there. Yeah. Any thoughts on Wheeler Yuta showing up on the tour?
Yeah, a little surprised, but I mean, he's worked New Japan before for like Super Juniors, and they brought him in as a member of the Death Riders. And if it wasn't going to be Daniel Garcia taking the pinfalls here, then it makes sense.
Who better than Wheeler Yuta?
Yeah, the once believed future ace of AEW.
Dude, he had a run there with that match with Mox and Danielson where he's bleeding all over the place. He had some folks believing for a while. So now back in order here, TMDK, Sabre, Vegeta, Hartley Jackson, defeating Bolton Oleg, Aaron Wolf, and Tatsuya Matsumoto. Post-match, we have Kosei Vegeta going nose-to-nose with Aaron Wolf, the never open weight champion. And something that we've always said on the show, we wish that they would do more junior versus heavyweight programs for the open weight title. And it seems like we're getting that here with Vegeta clearly, wanting to challenge Aaron Wolf.
I don't like that. I have nothing against Kosei Fujita, but this is a guy that won 0 matches in the Best of the Super Juniors. Zack Sabre Jr. just beat this guy. He's right there in the match. So me personally, I'm not believing that this is leading to a match between the two. If it is, then it has to be a forerunner to like a Zack match, and it's just going to serve as like a road to, little defense. But I love Fujita, but this is not an earned match. It makes very little sense to me at this point.
Yeah, and kind of touching on a question that we had here from Ferdinando, said thoughts on the Wolf Vegeta tease and the possibility of an emphasis on the open weight aspect of that belt. I mean, overall, yeah, I love the open weight aspect. I think I would love to see more heavyweight versus junior stuff. I think whenever they do it, it's great. You think of stuff like Hanare versus Hiromu, and just seeing some of the other stuff that Hiromu's done when he's been able to do more open weight stuff. And so yeah, I think it keeps the challengers fresh for the Never Champion when you can intermix juniors who are not currently in the title picture. But clearly, I do think the money match is Wolf versus Zack here, like you were saying, and they had a really good match there on that B block final night. And so, yeah, I think that is probably going to be the bigger direction where they go. But yeah, maybe it's a deal where Wolf kind of works through Team DK. Maybe he faces Vegeta. Maybe he takes on Hartley Jackson until he finally, gets to Zack Sabre Jr., maybe at a bigger spot down the line. And then we also had another question from Ferdinando saying, do you see a future where Vegeta goes heavyweight? I have a hard time seeing him go heavyweight. I mean, he doesn't have the height and he doesn't have the size right now. And I don't know if there's safely enough size that he could put on to become a heavyweight. And I mean, even guys like Hiromu and Desperado, who kind of got thicker towards the end of their junior runs, there was a hesitancy there to put them heavyweight. Also, Hiromu did get a lot of heavyweight opportunities, but they never went fully heavyweight with him. And we see the same thing right now with Desperado. Again, we always kind of joke about it. Desperado looks, he's a thick boy. He's a little thick in the middle, and he could easily, I think, transition over to heavyweight. I think he has the height there to also go along with it. So I think Desperado potentially going heavyweight would be a good move. But Vegeta, I just don't see the size and the genetics there for him to move to heavyweight. But I mean, also, there has been cases where with guys kind of like Fergal Devitt where the popularity, the overness kind of takes over the size. And so if Vegeta can get to that kind of level, maybe, but I think he's kind of bound to be just a junior ace.
He's too short. There are some guys that are borderline that they can put on enough hefty size or gain enough popularity to basically be accepted. And even then, some guys that have been on the cusp historically, like a Jushin Thunder Liger, a Hiromu, Desperado, those are all guys that never were really allowed to really make that jump, or when they did not do it successfully. There's a height thing. He specifically, and I'm not opposed to him wrestling the heavyweights, but he's nowhere near that historic borderline. In general, with wrestling, we have seen where guys have gotten smaller, even in Japan. Historically, some guys like Naito and Tanahashi might have been seen as smaller guys at one point in time. And so they've kind of, made some changes, but he's too short. I think he's like 5'6". There's just, unless something drastic changes to where they pull a Noah, a 2010s Noah, where they allowed guys like Marufuji and Kenta to take over as ace roles, there's just no way it's going to happen.
Yeah. Well, let's move on now to the semifinal matches. So first up, we have the Grip. Ryohei Oiwa defeating the Prince, Callum Newman, in 18 minutes and 45 seconds to advance to the finals. And I think a big thing here with Oiwa going into this match and the finals, he did make the promise to Tenzan that he would get to the semifinals on his retirement night and get to the finals. And Oiwa was Tenzan's attendant during his young Lion days, and so there is that big Tenzan connection there. And so, Oiwa lives up to the promise here, defeats former IWGP World Champion Callum Newman here in the semifinal matchup.
What a tough assignment to be the attendant for a wrestler who makes very, very, very few dates all throughout the midst of his young Lion run. Egg on my face and a little bit on yours, Jeremy. I think I probably swayed you a little bit, but egg on my face last week. I told the people that as much as everyone wanted Oiwa to go through, that there's just no way that they were going to keep Takeshita out. And not only did he get through, but he defeats Callum Newman here. Just a huge, unexpected for me, maybe not for others, but, this just does not follow the traditional trends of Ghetto's booking over the past, 12, 13, 14 years at this point. So huge shocker. I thought Oiwa and Callum was fantastic. Possibly Callum's one of his best. I don't know. Dave gave him and Hanare 5 stars, so far be it from me to argue with the arbiter of star ratings. But I felt that this might have been Callum's best match in the tournament, and Callum was sporting horrendous marks on his back the final few nights, which were just crazy.
Yeah, from that B block final night, he took the rampage through a table. And that was nasty.
But Oiwa here, he defeated Takeshita a few nights prior with just not just because it was part of a sequence, but he punctuated his efforts with a huge lariat to pick up the 1, 2, 3. Did the same thing here to Callum twice in a row, huge lariats. I know the grip is his thing. Did he hit the grip here? Because he didn't hit the grip on Takeshita. He hit him with a standard lariat.
Yeah, it was a discus lariat here.
Okay, gotcha. But in either case, like just really, really, really impressive outing from both guys. And, you know, for Callum, a guy that held the title this year, youngest winner of the New Japan Cup, and a guy in Oiwa who I believe didn't he defeat Oiwa in that tournament this year?
I think so, yeah.
Okay, I'm trying to recall because I'm like, did he lose to Zach in that tournament like he always does, or did he lose to Callum? I'd have to look here again, but
actually, I think he might have lost. That sounds. I think he might have lost. I can't remember now.
I'm gonna look, but because if not, then this was a rematch. But in either case, huge monumental victory for Oiwa here.
Yeah, and you know the story of Oiwa's tournament getting over the side headlock that we talked about last week. And Josh, have you seen the controversy of the name of the headlock?
Well, so first off, I did look. So this was a rematch from the year prior in the G1 Climax, and actually Oiwa defeated Callum Newman in the 2025 G1 Climax. And that's their only other singles outing. So Oiwa might have a little bit of a Callum's number here. No, why don't you catch me up? What was the, I mean, obviously last week I was making fun of the name, but nobody else, everyone else seems to love the name Big Lock. So
well, there's a debate on what the name actually is. So, you know, on the English site, it calls it the Big Lock, but I guess on the Japanese sites and commentary, they've been saying the Big Rock. And then somebody on Twitter pointed out to the commentary team, to Chris and Walker, they were like, Japanese saying Big Rock, English says Big Lock. One of you are wrong. Which one is it? And then English commentary switched up on the semifinal and final nights. They started calling it the Big Rock. And so I don't know what it is. And historically, there has been. I don't think it's Big Rock.
Yeah. So, you know, the thing with Japanese people, and this is not me like speaking out of turn. And, you know, I'm not trying to lean into like stereotypes, nothing like that. This is a proven, you know, language thing. They don't have the L sound. I'm not an expert on Japanese, but they don't use the L, the la la la. They don't use that in their language. So it's always been, that's one of the toughest things for Japanese people when they try to learn English, because the R sound is what they historically, you know, that's the comparable noise that they make. So like we've heard over the years, I can't even think of a word, and I don't want to do a Japanese impersonation, but like Thunder Riger, you know, they would call him Riger instead of Liger. Things
right,
like that.
Or like Bad Luck Fale. They say Bad Luck Fale. Yeah. Yeah. And even like on Twitter and stuff, like when you see the Japanese to English translations, a lot of times words that have the L in English and they put an R there in the translation. So even like the translation bots are getting that wrong when it's translated over.
Think about, okay, I know that New Japan has and I know I can see over here that Ethan's got some comments.
Yeah, he was throwing the eyeballs up,
throwing the eyeballs out. He says Josh is cutting the BS. We've seen nicknames here in New Japan for some of these Reiwa guys that like don't seem to, they sound cool. They take on like you know, English and American you know, phraseology, but it doesn't really mean anything. It's just, you know, like Heat Storm as an example. And there's other ones.
Gene Blast,
shit like that. But so could this just be another example of that? Big Rock? Sure. But it's a headlock. I would venture, based on the L to R thing, it is Big Lock. They're just, you know, someone in the fandom is most likely very much misunderstanding what they're, you know, what's going on the Japanese commentary team.
Yeah. But regardless of that, that was a story of Oiwa's tournament, getting over the big rock, whatever you want to call it, getting over
it's not the big rock. And actually, I feel like if you start calling it, unless you are actually having, unless you have it, difficulty using your L's, it's, if you're a fluent English speaker and you're from the West and you're calling it big rock, oh no, bro.
So Oiwa, he's gotten a side headlock over, and to hear the way the crowd reacted when he would get it on, there were several points in this match here with Newman where he would get the near submissions, where he would lock it in. The crowd's popping. Like, he did a great job of getting it over to where, like, they're gasping when he gets the side headlock on.
Bro, I thought he was going to tap out both Takeshita and Callum at different points. I mean, not in the sense of like, oh, I'm expecting it, but like they teased it so many times where I was like, oh, fuck. Like, are they going to do this right now? This is crazy. Ultimately, they didn't, but that's how much they had me believing in the validity of the move.
Yeah, he ended up having to revert back to the grip, the discus lariat to get the win here. And yeah, with that, Oiwa punched his ticket to the finals, keeps his promise to Tenzan here on his retirement night. So yeah, I was pleasantly surprised because I just didn't see Oiwa getting in. Like you mentioned, yeah, we had some egg on our face, and I apologize in the Discord to the Grippers, as they call themselves, because I thought Oiwa had a good tournament. I just didn't see, based off, like you mentioned, the way Gato's booked, you would think former world champion, new young guy who's going through, you think you would go with the former world champion, but yeah, big upset, kind of surprise here for Oiwa getting through.
Well, if you asked me last week, is there any chance that Oiwa wins this thing? Yes, but it's so fucking unlikely.
Yeah.
Like, I would have put his chances at sub 10%.
Yeah.
And honestly, I know that there are a lot of people that are huge fans of his, and they have even jumped more on the bandwagon as this tournament has progressed, who think that is an outlandish thing, and they feel like they were right all along. And maybe they should take a little victory lap in that, but like, history's on our side. This isn't us saying he can't go through because we don't believe in the guy. We don't think he has the talent or the chops to do it. This is something that we always say in the finance world, past performance does not necessarily indicate, future returns. And so you can't say that just because this particular, let's say, mutual fund has historically returned 10% that you can anticipate it's for sure going to do that. But that's just a disclaimer, because that is what people do, is like, we look at, hey, here's how much it costs. Here's historically how it's performed. Here's the safety of it. Chances are, if you put your money in that, and this is what it's always done, this is probably what it's going to do long term. And I feel very confident that if you'd asked me a week ago, is there any chance Oiwa wins this thing? I would have said, hell no, because I didn't think there's any chance of him winning. I thought the chances of him going into the semis was just so highly unlikely. I'm glad he did. Ethan Saber Jr. 2366 says, truthfully, I love the decision, but I like the Tsuji win idea y'all proposed more in the long run. Feels good now, but I'm uncertain this is the best long run decision. That's a great comment. I share some similar sentiments, but we're going to get into that.
Yeah. Well, let's move on to the next semifinal match. So we have the Heat Storm, Yuya Uemura defeating the Gene Blast, the IWGP Heavyweight Champion, Yota Tsuji, 25 minutes and 19 seconds. We got big match gear, Tsuji with the trunks that he brought out in that one match with Gabe Kidd. Also, I think he brought it out last year in the semifinals of G1. So these guys also historical rivals, generational rivals, young lion class, and Uemura here was able to get the job done with the deadbolt suplex and beating Yota Tsuji.
One time when I was in middle school, I jokingly, and I did not mean this in a sexual way, but I jokingly called a girl she wasn't my girlfriend, but it was like a girl that, I was palling around with. I called her Thunder Thighs from my dad. Not to her face. Like right. I wasn't making a weight joke. I was just talking, like I was just, shooting the shit. I don't know. I was a stupid teenager and I called to my dad. I said Thunder Thighs. He's like, what did you just say? He's like, where did you hear that? And I was like, I don't know. It's just something he's like, don't fucking say that. But the reason I say that is because Tsuji, bro, I know we're not body shaming. Thunder Thighs, dog. Like,
thick.
Yeah.
Oh man.
I feel like if the Tunnel Talk girls were they were tuning into the Shinneon, that would probably be one of their guys.
Oh yeah, I think they would dig the thighs of Tsuji. I think they like a thick boy, and so yeah, I think there'd be a lot of love for Tsuji with the Tunnel Talk girls.
I've heard Sarah of the Trish and Sarah podcast wax poetically. She's not the biggest New Japan watcher, but I've heard her talk glowingly about the physical attributes of one Yota Tsuji.
Yeah. But yeah, I thought this match was great. And, again, big Young Lion history here. These guys have had 53 singles matches against each other. And also there was a big story with the Boston Crab, because also that's a whole link in their Young Lion history. Plus we've seen Tsuji using that to beat people and kind of, humble people to the New Japan way. And so throughout this match, both guys put on the Boston Crab. So yeah, Yuya trying to get a submission win there. And yeah, a lot of great counters of a lot of their big stuff. Uemura also trying to work over the arm there to slow down the power of Yota Tsuji. And a lot of great counters between the Gene Blast and the Deadbolt Suplex. But yeah, ultimately towards the end here, it was Yuya getting that Deadbolt Suplex to get the win.
Like the 54th match between these guys. I know most of them have been when they were Young Lions, but in the history of this show, one of the most prolific Young Lion feuds of the KISS era. And it's been a few years since these two guys locked up. They still have every bit of the chemistry that they've always had. Some of the Tsuji's work on the lower back of Uemura to soften him up for the Boston Crab was phenomenal. And then, Yuya, after having his arm and his back compromised, getting his own Boston Crab at one point was really phenomenal. Crowd was super into it. Tsuji had him in the Boston Crab for over 2 minutes of the match, and it seemed very much like, oh, this might be it.
Yeah.
One of the coolest things and these guys started hitting some huge bombastic moves down the stretch, top rope stuff. But and there was what they're now starting on the English commentary to call Yuya Uemura's top rope move the high fly flow, but it is not the same splash. And he himself has his own name for those moves. What I don't remember what they're called.
It's not the Lion Shiner, which I think that they've been calling, because he'll do like the standing crossbody version. I think English has been calling that the Lion Shiner, but Walker has been calling high fly flow when he does his frog splash, which again, it's the lowdown. It's the D'Lo.
It is literally D'Lo Brown's.
It's the D'Lo Brown, not the Tanahashi, not the Eddie Guerrero, not even the RVD. He's doing the D'Lo Brown lowdown frog splash, which is still cool, but it's not high fly flow. And he's been calling, I think, both versions Lion Shiner.
Yeah, it's fucked up. Don't do that. Don't try to, don't try to put that on him. And then, yeah, he goes for a standing Lion Shiner and he gets Gene blasted in midair. That shit was fucking awesome.
Yeah.
He hits the very first ever that I've seen, at least from him, pop up elbow drop to a seated opponent, very much like a Shining Wizard, but an elbow drop.
Right, yeah. The first night Charlton called it, Shining Elbow, and then I guess it's called the Lion's Elbow.
Well, maybe, I don't know. Your nickname has nothing to do with fucking lions. I don't know. You're not going to the well one too many times with that. But whatever. It is what it is. But yeah, him. And then he's been, for the longest time now, he's been hitting the deadbolt with a release. And a lot of people like that because they feel like it opens up, like the excitement opens up the match and blah, 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 blah. I get it. But I've always loved the bridging deadlock suplex. And I've always felt like it could very much be this protected signature suplex move that it's like, you get hit with this, you're done. And that is what happened here. And I feel like he should continue to do that.
Yeah, I thought that was great. And yeah, you had Tsuji, hitting the Guerrero special, that top rope reverse suplex. So yeah, they were hitting out a lot of their big stuff. Tsuji with the Marlowe crash. Yeah, so a lot, like you mentioned, a lot of big bombastic moves there towards the end, and a lot of great counters here. So yeah, Uemura was able to get the bridge because went, and that's kind of been the difference. And we've seen this trend in New Japan where guys will have a kind of a secondary version of their finisher where if they don't hit it fully, the running Destino, stuff like that. If it's not the full on version, even with Tsuji, we're seeing, if he doesn't get the full running start with the Gene Blaster, or now the Fire Blaster is stronger, or even with like Bolton, he has like the short range kamikaze versus the full one. So that's kind of been a trend in New Japan with finishers. And so, yeah, Uemura, he has to get the bridge to get the win. He did it here, beat the IWGP champion, and got his way into the final. So we were guaranteed a first-time G1 Climax winner. And it seems like the first time in a long time where we've had, two young guys fresh in the finals.
Yeah. Ethan Saber Jr. says Yuya has made that bridge look like it lands on the head. Very impressed by how good that move looks. And I agree. Jeremy, last week, my prediction as outlandish. See, here's the thing. Geto and the creative committee have decided to do something fresh, new, and exciting. I applaud them on that. Last week, I was taking a swing for the fences. I think you were riding with me where we were kind of thinking maybe they crown the champion as the G1 winner for the first time in 26 years. So we were kind of in the same, line of thinking, hey, they might do something fresh, new, and exciting, but we swing and a miss. The thing for me is the way that we booked it out, it would have required certain plausible people to have advanced, namely Gabe Kidd, in order for it to really kind of work out for Tsuji to kind of be the winner. Once I saw after those final few number one, when Oiwa went through and Takeshita didn't get through, I was like, it's double edged because I was still kind of counting on Tsuji. And I'm like, Tsuji's chances might have gone up because I still didn't believe Oiwa could win the whole thing. But when the B block came through and Kidd did not advance, and then it was Uemura and Callum, and then I saw it was Oiwa, and I'm like, oh, it's three young guys and the champion. Totally changed my way of thinking because I'm like, all right, so if Oiwa beats Yuya, he's going to wind up wrestling Callum or Oiwa. That final just doesn't kind of work for me. Like, it just doesn't make sense. And I was like, shit, like, I don't think Tsuji, that's when I knew Tsuji was probably not winning this thing.
Yeah.
As far as, young guys being in the finals, there have been plenty of times where they've had young generational talent. But here's the unique distinction that this final and post-match, we did get the, obligatory Oiwa comes down. He faces off with Yuya. We get the setup for the following night. But, these are both, they're not from the same generation, but two New Japan homegrown dojo talents that are domestic dojo talents who have never finaled in a G1 Climax. They have never obviously won a G1 Climax, and they've both never won the world title. And in fact, I don't think either of them have ever challenged for it. I mean, if anybody, Uemura might have, but I think the highest he's ever gotten is challenging for the white belt, not the world title. There've only been, I went through the whole history of the New Japan or the G1 Climax to see like how many times has this sort of thing actually happened. Like, and I'm talking these distinctions, like dojo guys never challenged for the title. First time both of them are finalists. It's only happened 3 times prior. The first one was the inaugural G1 Climax in 91, Chono and Muto. The next time it happened was in 97, which was Kensuke Sasaki versus Hiroyoshi Tenzan. The shortest G1 match in history, like 9 minutes and some change. And then Sasaki went on to win the title later that at the end of that month. And then the last time it happened was in 2007 when Goto defeated Makabe to win the tournament. So it hasn't happened in like 19 years. And it's such a huge rarity. That's why it was so difficult for me to predict that they would ever do something like this. A fucking ballsy move.
Yeah, and I mean, this is what we've been wanting for the last several years now. It's like, yeah, hit the gas, get these young guys over. And obviously they're in a position where they kind of have to. You don't have a Tetsuya Naito or a Kazuchika Okada, a Kota Ibushi, a Kenny Omega, a Jay White. Like, you have to rely on these young guys. And so, yeah, I thought this was a great call here by the creative team. And so with that takes us to the main event, which was the...
Actually, Jeremy, I've let you kind of go through. Why don't you let me go through the final 9 and talk about what happened here?
All right.
So we had G1 Climax 36 Night 19. The finals on August.
Well, we got to talk about Tenzan.
Oh, no, then... disregard. My apologies. I literally forgot about that shit. Yeah.
That's what I was getting into. the Hiroyoshi Tenzan retirement match.
Let's hurry it up. We don't need to talk about this too long.
My man, Satoshi Kojima, in a sold-out main event, defeats Tenzan. So we had the big video package of Tenzan's career that airs. He comes out in some fresh gear. He's got the horns on, and man... The walk to the ring, that was rough. Like I knew Tenzan was in rough shape, and I know it's been a while since he's actually had a match, but man, I was like, this was rough. But he gets to the ring. My man Kojima comes out there, and bro, I gotta give it up to Kojima on this, because I feel like Kojima saved this man's life multiple times in this match. And just positioned himself in just the right ways to make Tenzan look good, when this guy could like barely walk, barely run the ropes. He could barely get his hands up the chop. And Kojima like just worked this thing in a way. And I know like I'm kind of like, it's part like, haha, Jeremy loves Kojima, and part like seriously, like I'm impressed with like the way that Kojima was able to like sell and get in positions for like to take a Tenzan suplex and to make the match look somewhat competitive.
Tenzan was limping. It was a rough entrance. Ethan says, talk about your goat, Jeremy. Let your nuts hang, Jeremy. Smoking that Tenzan pack. Put out the cigarette. LMFAOOO.
Oh, man.
Listen, I wasn't surprised in any way to Tenzan's condition or appearance. Few and far between that we've seen this guy wrestle, and he's it's literally been like, I don't know, 6 years or so, maybe more, where we've been like Tenzan is on his last leg. Like literally. But the reality is we're seeing all these guys start to retire. We've talked about this before. What happened is the former generation wanted to retire. A worldwide pandemic hit. Nobody wanted to retire in front of no crowd or clap crowds. So it really extended the amount of time that these guys had to continue their careers. And then Tanahashi was retiring, and nobody wanted to either A, steal his shine, or, kind of precede it. So that's why we're starting to see so many of these third generation dads, retire following, the year following Tanahashi's retirement. They've been anticipating doing this for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
Ethan says, contrasting the Tanahashi retirement is honestly kind of sad. Happy he went out solid. That's reaching, but still. I would say this. I agree with you. I thought Kojima carried him And I thought Tenzan did the best he possibly could do, considering what we've seen from him in the past 2 years. This far outkicked the coverage of what it could be. There are some similarities here to some other fantastic retirement carry jobs. The one that I think of, it's not quite the same, but I remember when Tenryu literally just could not fucking wrestle, and he went out there with Okada, and Okada basically had a match by himself. This might not have been as daring and bold as that one was, but the crowd their reception for Tenzan was ginormous. Mm-hmm. They were so excited to see Kojima and Tenzan lock it up one more time. Tenzan didn't call on him to do anything that was too physically demanding beyond what he's capable of.
He did attempt moonsault.
Yeah. Remember when he was doing topes to the outside for a little bit there in tag team matches? So we didn't get that. But there was the moment where, like, and this worked because of his condition, where he was on the ground and Kojima is like goading him and like telling him to get up. Mm-hmm. And this was a callback to their very, very famous, I believe it was 2005 title match, which was title versus title, All Japan, New Japan for the Triple Crown and the IWGP. Mm-hmm. And it was supposed to go to a 60-minute draw, and Tenzan's body gave out and he couldn't get off the mat. And it went like, it was close to the end of the match, but it was like 4 or 5 minutes out and he literally couldn't get off the mat. And Kojima is like having to drop elbows on him and tell him to get up and get up. And eventually he couldn't get up. And with a few seconds left, the referees like rang the fucking bell. And so it was supposed to be a 60-minute draw, but Kojima ended up walking away that night with both titles impromptu, like on a shoot. Mm-hmm. And that's also the same night that he decided to, he was, Kojima's a dojo guy from New Japan, but he made the jump in the early 2000s to All Japan when Inokiism was going on. He was one of the guys that jumped with Muto. So there's this blood rivalry thing, and him and Tenzan, former partner, same generation, yada, yada, yada. And he's a true blue All Japan guy at this point. And he's walking out of the ring and he takes the Triple Crown. He's got the Triple Crown on him, but he takes the IWGP and he fucking tosses that shit. And Nakamura and Tanahashi, who are both like seconds, they're in the jumpsuits. They lose their shit, bro. And they like attack him in the middle of the, especially, bro, Tanahashi attacks the shit out of Kojima. And it's like, none of this is planned. Like, this is, I said all that to say this man goading this guy to get up. It's a callback to like, and it works because his body is really broken down once again, but he gets up this time. But ultimately, like, Kojima puts him down with multiple, Western lariats.
Yeah, and one other thing to call out, this match originally was supposed to just be a 5-minute exhibition. And before the bell gets rang, Tenzan grabs the mic and is like, nah, like, let's run it. No time limit. There must be a winner.
He said no time limit. I got nervous, dude. I was like, what do you mean no time limit?
He's like, I've been training. What do you mean? Let's run it. And so, yeah, Tanahashi, they went with it. And yeah, so it ended up being no time limit. So it ended up going to 9 minutes, 22 seconds.
Yeah. He puts down Tenzan, time-honored tradition, going out on your back, not on your front, goes out on a shield. And then following the match, they embrace. And then suddenly we get Iska. That was unexpected, coming out looking crazy as shit.
And for years, he looks in like almost better shape than like when he was like last active.
Yeah, he looks good. He comes out, and there had been that lingering story from a few years ago when he was still part of Suzuki-gun, and he had turned on Tenzan many years ago, and then he became the crazed maniac. And this was like during the clap crowds and the pandemic, and Iska was getting ready to retire. He's one of the guys who's like, I don't give a fuck about the crowds. I'll go out.
He's like, I'm done.
I'm done. But Tenzan was part of like his retirement, and the whole build was, is he going to be able to break the spell of the wild man and get him to come back to the Hantai side and embrace him? Mm-hmm. And they almost did it, and then he still stayed in character.
Put the claw on that map.
Put the claw on that fucking dude. Bow. So he comes out, and you think they're going to do that this time. And he's like, nah, fuck that shit. And he fucking attacks him again. But then Kojima steps in and he tells him, wake up, bitch. And
Yo, Kojima had to hit that man with a Koji cutter and be like,
and then it's suddenly like he breaks out of the spell. It reminds me of the time when Randy Savage decided to elbow drop Hulk Hogan to revive him. And and then he breaks out of the spell and he hugs Tenzan.
Long-term storytelling paid off that angle of Iska in that man with the claw during the retirement running off. They ran it back.
The Ballad of the Golden Lovers, Tenzan and Iska. It's right there.
He was pleading. He's like, hey, wake up. Please wake up, Iska. And so did all
this
that.
Is very much, bloodlineism. A lot of melodrama there.
Yeah, so they shook hands, but he didn't leave the gimmick. He was still the wild man. He left. He attacked Mikami, the announcer that he always attacks, ripped the shirt off, ran through the crowd.
You gotta be true to yourself.
Yeah.
You gotta be true to yourself, Jeremy.
Yeah.
Can't drop the gimmick just because he's not the Undertaker. He's not gonna go out and start a podcast with his fucking wife and shit, Exposing the business. Ethan Saber, does the spirit still live on in that claw? Is Taichi next for the gimmick? Let us know, Ghetto. Yeah, they got rid of that claw so many years ago. It's done.
Well, Taichi had took it and was supposed to be like the new keeper of it, but I think
they retired it, remember?
Yeah, but then Iska came back at one point, stole it again. Yeah.
Well, it had been retired and then they brought it back out and then he stole it, but yeah. And then from there, all the flowers, all the legends, the big send off for Tenzan, which is so deserving. And, one big thing here is he was for many a year, Mr. August, Mr. G1. This guy won the G1 finals multiple times, finaled multiple times, had some of the best G1 finals and had some of the greatest matches in the company's history in this building. And it was a very fitting way for him to go out.
Yeah. And I'll see tons of legends, Riki Choshu, Muto, they had my boy Kanemoto put a video in. Kendo Kashin came out there. So yeah, they had tons of legends out there to pay their respects, and a great closing angle there, great ceremonies. Yeah, great way to end the career of Tenzan.
Ethan says Tangaloa should have won the claw in that ladder match. Yeah, don't remind us of that ladder match. That was a low point in New Japan.
Yeah. Before we get to the finals, one thing that we got to talk about that I didn't put on the rundown, but it happened on the show. So at some point, I forget exactly where, I think it was before the semifinals, they went to a video package, and we had AI Antonio Inoki. The AI Antonio Inoki coming out there announcing, obviously next year is the 55th anniversary of New Japan, and they officially announced Wrestle Kingdom 2027, January 4th. And yeah, what are we thinking about AI Antonio Inoki?
Without getting into the AI stuff too much, like I have some mixed emotions about AI. Generally speaking, I'm not high on it. But where it really putting the ethical parts of it aside, the image creation shit freaks me out. I just don't I don't like it. It doesn't sit right. It doesn't sit well with my soul, Jeremy. Just something it seems wrong. Like that shit is uncanny. So for them to have taken one of my favorite legends of all time and turn this dude. Now, here's the thing. I saw, I think it was Rich, friend of the show, Rich Latta. I think he said this is one of the most Inoki things. Like he would have wanted to be an AI. Maybe that's true. But how would we fucking know? Like his estate decided to do this without the man's consent. He's dead. God rest his soul. And I don't want to talk to AI Inoki, and AI Inoki fucking this is evil, dude. I don't like it.
Yeah, it's weird. I mean, overall, I do think there are some good use cases for AI. I don't really think this is one of them. I joked in one of our chats. I'm like, is New Japan going to be the first to do like an AI generated match? Like, are we going to get like AI Inoki versus, AI Hashimoto in the main event or something?
I've been joking with Rich about WWE doing something like that and them having like virtual reality matches in the future and shit.
Yeah.
And all that. But like, God, I don't like it, dude. I hate it.
Yeah, it's weird.
There's been a huge, the world is inundated with this stuff, but like Puroresu and Joshi are not, excluded from this. There has just been an inundation of AI across different promotions, whether it's music, promotion, marketing material, match graphics, match videos, you name it. They're not leaning into it as heavily as say like big juggernaut like WWE has recently, but it's still all over the place. And I'm just not, I agree. I do believe, and this might sound controversial, I think there are some good uses of it potentially, but using it for wrestling is not one of those world bettering potential things that they use it for.
Yeah. All right, so I think that's it for the semifinals. We can now jump in.
Let's go through the finals here. So this past Sunday, August 16th, we had from Ryogoku Sumo Hall reported attendance 7,260, which is a little down from the night prior. We had the House of Torturers Kanemaru show, Doki and Yujiro Takahashi. They defeated Masatori Yasuda, Taguchi, El Desperado, and Yoshihashi. Second match, Yano.
Hold up, brother.
Oh, my bad.
So big thing here, towards the end, Sho put a Mystico mask over Yasuda's face and then let Doki apply the darkness stretch to tap out Yasuda. So essentially, staking their claim for the junior tag title. So yeah, in case you guys forgot, Desperado and Mystico are still the junior tag team champions. So here, the ceremonial kind of victory over the junior champs here and tapping out Yasuda with the Mystico mask on, setting up Doki and Sho to be contenders for the junior tag titles.
Yano and Makabe defeated the United Empires, Zayn J and Francesco Akira.
Yeah, so once again, we're seeing the establishing of most violent players, and we would see these guys later on in the night to get a better look at what the tag title picture is going to be looking like.
TMDK, Fujita, Hartley Jackson, and ZSJ defeat Tetsuya Matsumoto, Master Wato, and Oleg Bolton.
Yeah, Aaron Wolf was supposed to be in this match, but it sounded like he had some kind of illness, so they weren't able to continue the tease of Fujita and Wolf here. On commentary, they did tease, Bolton's an openweight champion. Maybe Fujita can go after him, but ultimately, TMDK gets momentum, and yeah, either Fujita or Zach seems like they're going to be in line to challenge Aaron Wolf.
Fourth match of the night, Callum Newman, Great-O-Khan, and Hanare defeated the Unbound Companies, Daiki Nagai, Oscar, and Yuto Ice.
Yeah, so UE getting the momentum here, and the post-match was just kind of a hot mess here. All these guys brawling. You had the most violent players coming out as well and brawling. So, again, seems like we're setting up a three-way situation for the IWGP tag team titles. So yeah, they attacked the Knockout Brothers after Knockout Brothers kind of posed with the tag team titles, taking out Hanare and Okan. And so they're brawling to the back, kind of big schmalls. And then Newman, of course, was still pissed with Nagai because towards the end of this match, like Nagai was just getting all these hot moves on Newman. Crowds fully behind Nagai, and it looked like, during one of the undercards, Nagai adopted the Drilla Killer. So he tried to hit that here on Newman, couldn't get it done. Newman was able to pin him, but yeah, Newman was still hot that, Nagai was, trying to show off on him. And so he's like, you know what? The payment is your head. This man, Newman, goes outside, gets the sword, and holds the sword up to Nagai's head. And then we get Gato coming out to make the save. And he's like, oh, hold on. He's like, calm down. He's like, I got the guy. You have a bad attitude. I got the guy that can change your attitude. And the music hits, and out comes Jeff Cobb. And yeah, a big pop here. I think the crowd forgot what his music sounded like, because to me, there wasn't like an initial pop when the music played, but once he walked out, it was a big pop there, and people were excited to see Cobb. And I think people were maybe speculating, is Cobb just going to go back to United Empire? Where does he play in the whole mix of this thing? Also, him and Newman used to be teammates, and he's one of the original Empire members. And so he gets in the ring, and, Newman's like, all right, you got one chance. Kiss the crown, throw the crowns up, your UE. And then Gato's on the side kind of holding up the unbound fist, and Cobb ends out laying out Newman, throws up the fist with Gato, and Jeff Cobb is officially a part of the Unbound company and will be feuding with Callum Newman. And we had a couple questions here. MJ saying, I thought Jeff Cobb retired. Anyway, where do you think he slots in, and why do you think he's unbound?
I was hoping he would come back as the monster Matanza Cueto, or some variant of that gimmick. I don't think they own the trademark, but honestly, bro, I see Jeff Cobb coming in very much in the what is his name? Tamatonga role. That's why I think he came in here. I think it's because they, I don't know. The only other like gaijin that I can think of that's Hantai that's like pretty significant would probably be like Oleg Boltin. And I don't think he's going to be past Oleg Boltin. I think it's sort of like, hey, you jumped. It's not your fault, but they, you fucking ruined one of our big title matches. We're happy to have you back as a talent, but we're not going to like, this might look on the surface to some people like, okay, he's working Callum. There's this story of their history together and, Callum's ascension and everything. And maybe it will be a quote unquote quasi big program, but long term, I think that they're cooling this man's jets is what this shit says to me, honestly.
Yeah, I think that, maybe it'll be obviously a good entry point for him, but I kind of think maybe, Newman probably has to win this feud at some point, however long it goes. Yeah, so, I mean, good to see him back. Also, he's still very talented and, kind of an interesting position there in the Unbound company. But, I think when you look at the landscape, it's like, where can you slot him to where he's not kind of really jumping somebody? He's not going to surpass Tsuji. He'll probably be kind of in line with Shingo. He's not going to surpass like Yuto Ice and Oscar. So, I kind of think, Unbound is kind of the right spot for him. And similar question from Les Commission 7252 saying, happy to see Cobb return, but wouldn't it be better for him to group back with UE instead of Unbound? Because honestly, both groups feel occupied enough to be accepting another guy.
I think that him coming into the UE, his spot has sort of been taken by some of the other entrants into that group, and him coming in sort of dilutes a little bit of what those guys have going on. I know that there's questions about the injury with Jake Lee, and maybe that could fill a void there, but I don't feel like they needed that void to be filled right now. Honestly, Antai is generic as fuck. I think they're bringing him in to cool this man's jets. I think he is getting very much the Kushida treatment. Like, we're happy to have you here. We're going to give you an angle. As long as you don't get hand, foot, and mouth disease, you're going to get a little run. You're going to get, but you're here to have a comfortable position on this card, putting other people over and working, good matches. I don't know his status, maybe he's signed, but I wouldn't be surprised if he's, here on a freelance, basis, and we see him taking MLW and GCW if they're still around, and NWA or whatever the fuck. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if we don't see him working a hybrid schedule here.
Yeah, and I think a potential, maybe this is kind of like conspiracy theory, but I think another potential reason maybe he's not in United Empire is maybe like the whole like AEW storyline. It does seem like Cobb is. It seems like there might have been issues there with him and Tony Khan, maybe, and there's a reason why he didn't go to AEW. And so there is this now United Empire link with that story there. And so maybe keeping him in Unbound is a way to just kind of keep him out of the whole AEW mix. Maybe. I don't know.
Maybe, but AEW's never shown any desire to strictly adhere to the kayfabe of New Japan or even acknowledge it, except for when it, suits their needs. So,
yeah. But either way, I do think it adds another wrinkle to the whole United Empire story and what's been going on with Newman and Ospreay, which we did have a question from MJ. Is Ospreay versus Callum a Wrestle Kingdom match this year or not?
That was always my belief. I haven't followed up on this, but it feels like that might be, in question at this point.
Yeah. I haven't really heard any update on that. I would think that would be the logical destination because I don't think you're going to do it. I don't think there's a room for it in the fall right now, especially, Ospreay is 2 weeks away from winning the AEW world title. He's going to have a pretty occupied fall and winter. I don't think there's any real show to do it there that makes sense. So I feel like if it's going to happen, I think, January 4th, 27 would make the most sense.
Well, the question is, will Ospreay still have the AEW title come January 4th?
Yes.
Something got caught in my throat.
Yeah, there are some people that might, politic their way to make sure that doesn't happen. But yeah, we'll see what happens there.
Fifth match of the night, Unbound Company, Shingo Takagi and Drilla Maloney. That's the War Dragons.
Yes,
sir.
Yes.
They defeated the Death Riders, Wheeler Yuta and Gabe Kidd. Question from Few Shoulders 2780. Since Wheeler Yuta appeared in the semis and finals, Shingo seemingly calling out Claudio, would you be interested in seeing younger AEW wrestlers come for a tour or two? I would want to see Wheeler Yuta and Daniel Garcia do a tag league.
Yeah, I mean, I think historically on this show, you've always been open for more young AEW guys to come over, get some seasoning, do some tours, and kind of find a place. Because, I mean, a lot of these young guys, they just don't work enough dates, and this could be a way for them to, get some experience, do some mini excursions. So, yeah, I'd totally be in on a Utah Garcia team for World Tag League, or having these guys come over more and work certain tours, especially since they are trying to link some of these factions and storylines together. I think it would be great.
We've advocated for that extensively over the years.
Yeah.
Sixth match of the night.
So,
my bad.
So this was, the continuation of the Drilla and Gabe storyline. So this time, Drilla and Shingo got the win, and then Yuta got killed here. He got hit with the Drilla Killer and the Last of the Dragon here to get the win. And then there was a video posted on social media in the backstage where Gabe and Drilla were exchanging words with each other, and it got really heated. And essentially, Drilla being like, I was the one that was always here for you, and you left, and your head's not right again, and Gabe kind of going back and forth with him as well, and being, you should be with us. What are you doing here? This kind of a thing. And Drilla's like, I'm not gonna be like, what's gonna happen is I'm gonna beat you for that belt, and you're going to go back to the hotel room. I'm not going to be next door in that hotel room. And they're just going in on each other, build it up really heated. And so that's an upcoming title match that's going to be coming up in Kobe. I think they're doing a great job of heating up this Drilla and Gabe Kidd match.
Yeah, I think that, I concur with everything you said there. And, this is all coming off the back of the angle that we saw at Dominion, and then the fantastic, not everyone agrees, but what I thought was a fantastic opening round match, on the first night of the G1. So I'm very much looking forward to that. Following this match, we had the House of Torture, the New Japan debut. Not that he's never wrestled here before, but as a full-fledged roster member, Shun Skywalker teaming with Sonata and Ren Narita. They defeated the team of Satoshi Kojima, Taichi, and Konosuke Takeshita. We have quite a few questions here regarding this match and angle.
Yeah, so Rainbow and Slam Picks, it said Shun Skywalker joining House of Torture and immediately having a pretty decent match give you hope for an improved Hot, or dread that Gato will go crazy booking them again?
It doesn't. I mean, I'm a fan of Shun Skywalker. I don't follow Dragon Gate, but what I've seen and heard, I've followed his career from people that are knowledgeable, and what I've seen from him, not only as a worker, but as a character, I think it makes a lot of sense. Obviously, Jeremy, you know, I'm a big fan of any time someone does a flip and follows up with a knee drop.
Yes.
You know,
that Ibushi.
Double. Yeah. Like Ibushi, double, or like a speedball back in the day.
Yeah.
Fucking, you know, double V trigger off the, you know, flipping double V trigger. I love that shit. But we've seen a lot of people get hampered down with this gimmick. It could be, I mean, if anything, do you want it to potentially be a boost? Sure. But House of Torture is House of Torture. You know, it's a gimmick.
Yeah. I mean, I from what like you said, I haven't, you know, followed Shun's full career, but also we've seen him here and there. He has a decent cage match profile, and a lot of people that I respect and follow his career, said, you know, great things about him. So a little bit optimistic. I mean, you got to think, you know, the kind of the rumors are, you know, a lot of the guys in House of Torture are, you know, just kind of checked out or complacent or very happy with their roles and don't really want to elevate it to anything else more than what it is. And so with Shun coming in, you know, fresh guy, bigger stage, one would hope that he is motivated to have a impactful New Japan run, and maybe with him there is a jolt that can make it more compelling, and maybe there is a different twist to it. However, you know, you mentioned, you know, looking back at history for stuff and what can past performance tell us about, you know, future predictions. And when you look at the past performance of House of Torture, it seems like no matter how many talented guys that they inject into that faction, it doesn't change the outcome of what that faction is and the outcomes of that. So,
hey, did he do cool shit? Was he a little slightly flashy here? Sure. Was there whiskey, spit? Was there Kane's, you know, hit?
Ref distraction.
Was there distractions? Was there ref bumps? There was still House of Torturism. If that shit's not going away, he's going to be hampered with the gimmick, you know?
Yeah. Then from Native, he says, where do you see Shun Skywalker going at NJPW? Will this also help House of Torture not be dog shit?
Well, we've addressed the quality thing. In terms of where I see him going, I think he has somewhat of an uphill battle in front of him. From my understanding, management, talent, they're high on him. That's great. He's not a small talent, but he's not a big talent either. He's not huge stature wise. Mm-hmm. And if you think about it, Jeremy, off the top of my head, I can't think of a single heavyweight masked domestic star in New Japan. And if there's been one, it's been, or even just in Japan in general, you know what I mean? It's been many, many, many years. So it is going to be interesting to see, like, he's not a dojo system guy, came from abroad. He came from Dragon Gate, which is sort of like Dragon Gate's it's a real place. They've taken stars from there and done things with them, but it's also kind of like this, you know, when people talk about the big companies, they talk about the Tokyo based companies, Noah, All Japan, DDT, but you know, they're Osaka based, and you know, it's junior based, and it's, you know, Lucha Rezu, and it's sort of this different thing. And I think he's got an uphill battle in front of him. And it's sort of like Shingo was able to overcome it. I know this is a talented guy, but he wears a mask. He wasn't trained in this dojo. He came from a different, you know, a place that's not necessarily that well respected in certain respects. And are people going to be willing to put him over? You know, it's a good position being the leader of something like House of Torture, but it's also got its glass ceiling and handicaps.
Yeah. So yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what they do with him. And again, hopefully he's motivated enough and creative enough and can work with creative to maybe make a little bit of a shift, maybe even with just his matches. Maybe you leave the other guys, they do their normal thing, and maybe his matches are a little bit different. But yeah.
Take his mask off. Well, Eric Bischoff.
Yeah. Staleberger Bunch says after his performance in the G1 and Shun Skywalker debuting, are Ren Narita's days numbered?
I don't think his days are numbered. I do wonder if Walker Stewart's days are numbered.
Why?
Oh, bro, you didn't hear that send off at the end of the show with Chris Charlton? Tell him, they talk about the honor of his life, and Chris Charlton saying like, I love you, man. And bro, that shit read to me. And I'll just say it, like, after it perked my ears. And then in our Discord, there was some chirping going on of rumors. Now, I don't know where or what, but, and I'm not saying I haven't looked into it personally, so I don't know anything, but man, the way he was talking, the way that Charlton was, giving him the bro, you would have thought that one of us was leaving the show. Like, you know what I mean?
I love you. Yeah, I guess I didn't. I guess I really sounded like. I guess I really didn't lock into that, but
I don't know that that's the case. I can't say that's a confirmed rumor. Nothing like that. At this point, speculation. But the way obviously that final was so fantastic. Emotions were running high and everything, but I don't know, the way I was listening to it, I was like, oh shit, this dude's gone. We're gonna get that Jim Ross announcement or that Kevin Kelly announcement, like, oh guys, I'm doing Saturday nights in the States and I'm dual contracted. I'll be back, Yeah. Either that or we'll find out like him and Booker T Wednesday nights on the CW.
But yeah, back to Ren Narita. I think we kind of mentioned it earlier. I think he's in a spot now where he kind of has to decide, what's the future? Is he going to try to find a way to, outwork the gimmick, or is he just gonna, settle in, be complacent, and be kind of happy in the role that he's in?
Agreed.
Then
talking about Ren Narita.
Fuse Shoulder 2780 says, what do you think the ceiling for Skywalker will be? And will we potentially see a hostile takeover in Hot like Suzuki did with Kojima-gun?
Cool question, but a totally different thing altogether. I don't see anything. One thing people don't remember is Kojima-gun was a very, very, very short-lived unit that was basically just three dudes. It was literally just Kojima and Taichi and Taka, and both of those guys were like, they were Taichi and Taka back in the 2010-ish time or whatever that was. It would be like, to give you an example, someone overthrowing either just three guys or the Strong Style trio. It was a trio. It wasn't even really a full-fledged. I mean, it was a quote-unquote faction. Had it continued, they probably would have added people, but it's not the same thing. And it's very rare that you see like someone get ousted. I don't think we're going to be looking at Shun Skywalker coming in and then getting ousted and someone taking over he just got here, Yeah.
And Ethan Saber saying, was Evil not the peak of a superstar in Suzuki-gun and Hot?
Well, Evil wasn't in Suzuki-gun. He was in LIJ.
Yeah.
But, hey, presentation-wise, Evil was great. One of the best entrances in New Japan.
Yeah.
After that,
then the bell rings.
Then the bell rings.
Yeah. So that was that. So yeah, let's move on to the last two matches here.
Yeah. So Unbound Company in the semi-main event, Taiji Ishimori and Yota Tsuji, they defeated Yo and Hiroki Goto. And this match was concluded with Ishimori hitting the bloody cross on the the IWGP Junior Heavyweight Champion Yo to very much set the stage for a future title challenge.
Yeah, so this was essentially a double kind of match for a program in the fall. So we got Goto going to be challenging Tsuji in Destruction, and then Ishimori will be challenging Yo. Now with the pinning Yo here, and so yeah, we're going to see all over the Destruction Tour September Unbound Company and Hantai feuding, and so this was a way to kind of kick off what was next for Tsuji and Ishimori.
That's going to take us to the G1 Climax 36 final, the main event of the evening. Jeremy, why don't you do the honors?
Yep, so we had the grip, Ryohei Oiwa defeating the Heat Storm, Yuya Uemura by submission with the big lock here in the main event. And I know that there's been a lot of discussion about the styling of this match, how it was worked, the components of the match.
Hold on for just a moment. This came through earlier, but I felt like this is a good time to mention this. Full disclosure, we have not listened to this audio or visuals, I should say, but Rich Latta of One Nation Radio, of Social Suplex Podcast Network, on the RLPW channel that he runs on YouTube, he has put out a reaction video for this match, and it says, I just feel it's fitting to what you're mentioning. I love that the title of the video is, I love that you love the G1 finals, but that was 1976. And my reaction in our group thread is just, nope.
Yeah, so lots of controversy here. I also have another controversy with Rich, because this man used my NJPW World subscription, watched the finals, did not rewind. He stopped it right as Oiwa was holding the trophy. And you know, when you open up New Japan World, there is no play from beginning. Like, I just had to hit play where it was, and the first thing I see is this man holding the trophy.
Was it at the end of the video, or was it like the match had ended and he just stopped it like once they were celebrating?
Yeah, he just stopped it once they were celebrating, because they have like the whole the post-match promo and the ceremony, and the people leave it. Like, that man stopped it right. Literally, Josh, the first thing I see when I hit play is Oiwa holding the trophy up and smiling. Oh, I was hot. Dude, I had spent, because the thing was, I was able to watch all of the show except the main event right before church, and I had to go to church, and then I had to go. My nephew had a hockey game I had to go watch, and so that was literally the only thing I had not watched, and I had it queued up right to where after the VTR of that match played, and then I came back and it was at the end of the match, and I was spoiled.
Speaking of, so I have shared my password with not many, but several individuals over the years. But I think a lot of the people I've shared them with have either stopped using it or kind of forgotten the password. But one individual that still has my password that I'm sure uses it is social media manager Emily the Great. And without putting her business out there too much, I can always tell when she's in there, because it's so cherry picked as to who she's watching. That's not to say, now I'm not throwing shade. I'm sure she's watching other stuff and following it. But if you're short on time and you only got time, because there will be times where a whole show will be watched, but there's other times where I'm sure she's probably short on time, and it's I'll look through and it's Umino,
ELP,
Yuya, ELP, or whoever it is. So it was it'd be funny. I'd open up a file and I'd see 3 matches, and I'm like, oh, okay, I know she was in here watching this shit.
But anyway, I think this match was great. And maybe there might be some surprise there, because I know I am a big fan of, big moves and high pace action. But the thing that I loved about this match, was the pacing. They would do the time calls, and I'd be surprised, because they were just going and working, and it'd be 10 minutes past. I'm like, what? I thought they're going so fast. I thought maybe it was 5 minutes, and it's like 20 minutes. I'm like, what? Like, it's been this long, and they're just like going and working and killing it. So yeah, I thought the pacing was great. Also, I loved that the match stayed in the ring. We have been talking and complaining about every match having to go on the outside. There has to be a crowd brawl. There has to be throwing into the guardrails. You got to throw people in the chairs. Newman has to do his drop kick into the chairs. And it's like, okay, I get it. I think that works for certain characters. Obviously, there's some heels maybe you want to get heat, but everybody does it. It's not just the heels. And so it was so refreshing that the matches happen in the ring. And so I love that aspect of the match. And also, Oiwa got over the headlock. Uemura's been working over the arms. His sensi's been back. And so that they've gotten over both of their submission holds. And so, again, to hear the crowd popping when Oiwa would just get near to a headlock. At the beginning part of the match, it was Uemura was pretty much in control, working over the arm, and Oiwa was struggling to get the headlock. And every time he'd get close, the crowd's like oohing and awing. This guy's trying to put on a side headlock. So like that's a big testament there to the work he did in this tournament and getting the move over. And it was just like, they talk about Tokon and fighting spirit. Well, I feel like this match kind of demonstrated what fighting spirit is, where you have two guys that are, fighting for their hold and not giving up, and like the exchanges and counters. And I felt like it was just kind of brilliantly done to also just affect their big moves, because, Uemura's working over the arm. And so if Oiwa's arm's hurt, that's going to weaken the grip of his headlock. It's also going to weaken the grip as his discus lariat. And so that was brilliant. And then also with Uemura trying to just, work the headlock, that's going to stop Uemura. A grounded Uemura can't arm drag. He can't hit a deadbolt suplex if he's on his stomach with his head being crunched. So yeah, I thought all that was worked great as well. So I think there's so much there. And then you get to the later on in the match, and they are doing the big moves. They're doing big suplexes. They're doing big lariats. This was worked. I get it. I can kind of get what Rich is saying with, well, they're doing holds, work around holds. This is kind of old school style or whatever. But like, I don't know. I felt like the pace was much faster than any old school match. And I don't know. I found it, even being spoiled, I found it compelling of what they were doing. And like, I saw some of Rich's comments as I was watching the match, and I was kind of ready to be in the Rich camp and be like, what are we doing here? These long holds. We go to indie shows, and if guys slap on a sleeper in a minute after the match, we're like, no rest holds, get up and get working. But as the match went on, man, I got sucked in. I didn't feel like they were rest holds. I feel like they were actually working for a submission and trying to, hurt their opponent. And I think that the work that they've done getting their moves over is going to elevate when other people do those moves. So now when guys slap on a side headlock in the match, like, it's not just a rest hold. It's not just a transition move. It's like, oh, if you're strong enough, you can squeeze your opponent into submission. Like, we're seeing Oiwa do this. So when other guys throw on a side headlock now, yeah, it's not their finisher. However, it's not unplausible to think, oh, that's a real submission attempt, and you can get a near fall off of that. And the same thing with Uemura as he works over the arms. We know plenty of people do arm bars and wrist locks and stuff like that. I think, again, that just makes it more realistic that, yeah, if a guy learns how to do an arm bar correctly or a top wrist lock correctly, the arm is open for submission. That it's not just Zack Sabre who can do this stuff. Like, anybody who masters, and Charlton said it beautifully on commentary, like, don't fear the guy that knows 1,000 moves, but fear the guy that has practiced one move 1,000 times. And
the Bruce Lee quote.
Yeah, and that's like, even like in amateur wrestling, that was like a big thing for us too. It's like, yeah, you can learn all the different styles of takedowns, but like
drill.
Right, but if the one guy can learn to do a double leg and he has a perfect double leg, it doesn't matter if you know all these different throws and takedowns. Like, if the guy's perfected the double leg and you can't stop the double leg, like, you're screwed. And so yeah, it's good to know all the moves, but yeah, kind of create your move set and learn the ones that you can perfect and nail it. And so yeah, there's just so much great about this match. But I've been going on and on. Josh, I know that you really love the match too.
Yeah, I had a conversation. We keep mentioning Rich, and I feel like that's almost a little unfair. But the reality is I haven't been too much. I know that he's not alone. I'm sure that there are other fans that this might not be to their taste, and he is just a representation of that because he's our friend. I'm sure that this exists out there on the internet, but I just haven't really. It's not in my bubble, and I haven't really been active there. But me and him had a pretty lengthy conversation on Sunday, and I wish that we could have just recorded that audio because I felt like I did a great job. And there's so many things I do want to say. I might even go a little long here, so just bear with me. But I will say this is I happened to just awaken in the middle of the night around 3 or 4 p.m., like a.m., just randomly. I didn't intend to, and that's not usual for me, but I just pulled up my phone. I was kind of doom scrolling, and then I saw Emily tweet, and she's like, I'm so locked in for this main event. And I was like, oh shit. Like, I don't like to tune into New Japan World if the match is going to, sometimes it's like, I know it's going to be in the middle of the match, and I don't want to join it in the middle of it.
Yeah. You can't really rewind.
Yeah. And she's like, I'm so tuned in. And I was like, let me check. Is it like, I tune it on, and like Uemura's walking out, and I'm like, oh shit, I've made it live. Like, I don't think I've ever made it live, or maybe it's like been once in the past for a New Japan final. So I thought that was like really, really, really cool. And then, so I feel like that kind of helped. Anytime you watch a match live and it's highly anticipated, the stakes are high, it elevates your enjoyment of the match. Obviously I thought that the chances that Uemura was probably, the rumor had been that he was a likely favorite to win the match. But at the same time, Oiwa was coming in to this match with so much fanfare and this kind of gigantic push. Both guys are from similar generations, and it was really, I was torn as to who realistically, because you have to think beyond, okay, what's the next step? Where are we going? Is it an October defense? Is it a January defense? And how does that work depending on who wins here? So it was a tough call. And I did start to kind of lean like they might just fucking have Oiwa do this shit, but I didn't know. This match, like you said, I felt like even though it was worked in an older school style, the pacing of it was fantastic, to where they hit the 10-minute call and Charlton was on commentary. And he said essentially that he was shocked at the fact that they had just hit the 10-minute mark. And I myself was like, oh man, like that felt like 5 minutes, not 10 minutes.
Right. Yeah.
So I was right there. I thought as well. I thought that the pacing of what they were doing was so like quick. Now, here's the thing. The early portions of the match, and this might sound kind of similar. I've said in the past, Jeremy, it's been a long time, but during the pandemic, there was a really and it's totally different style, but it's similar in the sense that it was very basic. I was a huge proponent and fan of the series of Nagata Suzuki matches that took place in 2020. And if you recall, part of the reason I enjoyed those matches so much was because it had such a simple premise, and the action that was in front of you told this compelling story that was so easy to follow and engage with and understand. Here's what they're doing. Here's why they're doing it. Here's why it matters. And here's how it's compelling. This is the exact same thing. It doesn't matter about what they're doing. It matters why they're doing it. With that being said, Uemura starts off the match focusing primarily on a headlock on Oiwa. Yeah. And like we've talked about, Oiwa has gotten his headlock over. they talked about this in commentary, and I talked about, and I'm glad I did this a few weeks ago. It kind of came out of nowhere, but if you recall, I talked about how Oiwa and Uemura, when they were feuding in a tag team, that there were these allusions to them being so similar stylistically, and that Oiwa was calling himself the super new generation because he was like, I'm a hybrid that's elevated. I can do everything you do and more because I'm a powerhouse.
Yeah. Yeah, I can do submission game and I can do the power game, yeah.
One moment. Come here.
Yeah, and so that's, kind of where that rivalry kind of came out of, the Zack and Oiwa teaming up against Uemura and Taichi. And so, it's kind of seeing that dichotomy between, both those guys having that similar style and both guys kind of wanting to represent the new strong style and kind of having their own vision of what wrestling should be.
Right. So they both have their own vision of that. But beyond that, there's also a pride element. Oiwa, up to this point, we've talked about it for so long, he has never really been pushed to this level. He only returned a little over a year ago. Last year was like his first G1, and he had he's had some wins over big names, but it's always been in certain contexts. Most of the time, he's always lost. Uemura has, by far, he's been here much longer, and he's had much more progress in his career along with the rest of the Reiwa guys. So there's a little bit of a pride element to where when he starts working that headlock, he's kind of telling him like, yeah, you think you're the superior version of me? I'm going to take your move and I'm going to show you how it's really fucking done. And then the thing with what they were doing is like, okay, you would hear these stories many years ago about terrible pro wrestling where guys would lay in a move like a hold for a long time, and that's where this term rest hold is not really a real thing. That's not really. Now, does it happen? Do guys get blown up in matches or they don't want to work that night? And then they say, hey, brother, let me catch a breath. And then they put snap a hold on. Sure. But the term rest hold, honestly, that was like a colloquial term that was popularized primarily by like Dave Meltzer and Brian Alvarez. Like, it's a fan term. It's not a wrestling term. It's not something where guys are like, hey, we're going to go out there and do a rest hold at this point, and then we're going to do that. That's not a thing. Historically, the best workers, the guys that were dynamos in the 70s and 80s, names like Bret Hart, Nick Bockwinkel, Vern Gagne, Kurt Hennig, Ricky Steamboat, people that were never considered boring, never considered subpar, and considered state-of-the-art wrestlers and true blue professionals, they worked this style. And what is the style? The style is, we're going to work holds, but we're going to work the hold. And what that means is they tell a story that is compelling using the wrestling hold. These moves that they're using, wrist locks, head locks, arm scissors, these are the foundational, fundamental elements of what pro wrestling is. They're not a regression of what pro wrestling is. They are what you have to learn to become a pro wrestler. They are literally the dojo system. And there is an element of pro wrestling this year in New Japan where there is a rejection of the Western kind of, not to say that New Japan's going away from this. We've seen plenty of it throughout the year. Plenty of guys do what wrestlers do in the West, but there has somewhat been a rejection of it, especially amongst the Reiwa generation, where they say, no, we're going to do strong style. We're going to do what Nick Gotch and Carl Gotch and Billy Robinson and Inoki did. And we're going to elevate what has made New Japan distinct and great. A lot of this stems back to when we saw Yota Tsuji defeat Takeshita in the Tokyo Dome with the Boston Crab. That was the genesis of what this is. Now, with all that being said, he starts with the headlock. Then, and every time like here's what's awesome about it. He's not laying on the mat in a headlock. And this is not me like trying to cover for them. This is just literally what happened. Oiwa is trying his damnedest to get out of this headlock. And every single time he tries a maneuver, a reversal, this dude keeps holding on to it. He keeps slapping it on. He keeps finding fundamental ways to continue this. Now, Jeremy, I am going to tell you, I don't know if you thought about this. We haven't talked about it. The guy that is most Western influenced of anybody from this Reiwa generation, it is Yuya Uemura. And we've talked about his Western influences in the past. Mm-hmm. This match mirrors, for the first like 2/3 of it, very closely Shawn Michaels versus Kurt Angle. I think that he kind of laid a lot of this match out, and I think he borrowed liberally from what that match was, because the structure of the first 2/3 is almost identical. That WrestleMania 21 match is something I've watched many times.
I love that match.
Bro, he's doing the Shawn shit. He's doing what Shawn did to Kurt when Shawn would decide, especially later in his career, I'm going to prove to people that I can wrestle. And he would start putting people in holds. And he did the same thing. The extended headlock, the extended short arm scissors. This is something he did to Angle, Undertaker, a few other guys.
Probably
too.
Jericho, that 08 feud.
Yeah. So he leaves the headlock and then he goes into top wrist locks. He goes into the short arm scissors, and Oiwa is not able to figure these things out. Like they're transitioning. They're going. And it's like, yeah, he is using simple holds, but he's wearing this guy out and he's sunning him. He's basically saying like, you're still my fucking young boy. I'm the real tactician. I'm the real technical genius here. You still got a lot to fucking learn, kid. And then it is the story of what you mentioned, that when he transitioned to the arm, he is weakening this guy's ability to utilize the grip, and he's softening the ability for him to utilize the grip. But there's pride at play. Another thing too, what makes this match really special, number one, the crowd is engaged just enormously for everything. They're not quiet and, respectful while this stuff, and then going ooh and ah when they transition. They are life and death with every single thing that these guys are doing. Mm-hmm. So it's like, this is something I've said before, and some people don't agree with it, but how good a match is isn't just based on necessarily the high spots of a match or the work rate, although those things matter. It's the crowd reaction to it. And like you've mentioned, they've done a fantastic job getting these more basic fundamental moves over. But I also think a lot of it comes down to how, this is a Pavlovian response to what they've conditioned this audience for throughout the course of this tournament. I don't have the numbers for this, but I can just go out on a limb and say, I've been watching New Japan for a long time, watched a lot of G1 Climaxes. I can't recall any G1 Climax that's had this many stoppage finishes and submission finishes.
Yeah.
And a lot of those, and then also a lot of, they always have a lot of these, but a lot of leverage pins. And these two guys are two of the most pronounced practitioners of those two things, submissions and leverage pins. So when you get to the point where the crowd can believe that anything could potentially win a match and finish it, then it makes this final more important. The other thing, so there is some context. Now, I do think that the match stands on its own. Do I think it stands on its own the way that if you jumped into Ricochet and Ospreay, having seen nothing else, and actually you don't really need to have seen anything else, but just jump into that with no context. You don't know who these guys are, and you can just enjoy it for the art that it is. Maybe for an outside viewer who's not invested in the characters, the story arc, and the tournament, less impact. I do think the match holds up on its own, though, without having known those things. But if you've followed the tournament, you followed these guys' careers, and this crowd evidently has, it really elevates things to another level. The other thing too is you have to take into account the wear and tear that has been put on their bodies, not just in kayfabe, but in reality. And a lot of the work that they're doing on one another, it's a continuation of the damage that both of them were incurring all throughout the tournament, but namely in the semifinal matches that both of them were involved in. So it's like the very next night, and it's a continuation of that story. But eventually Oiwa is able to take over and start, putting that grip on. Every single time he put his headlock on, the crowd believed that it could have been a finish. Mm-hmm. That's why it matters. But then he's having to struggle through basically I got a broken wing. I don't know how I'm going to beat this guy because he's more advanced than me. He's earned more, blah, blah, blah. But I'm having to rely on brute strength and power. And like you said, fighting spirit, the token of it all. And he's like, damn it, I'm going to tap this motherfucker out with this headlock, no matter what it takes. And then eventually it does build to the suplexes and it does build to the strike exchanges. Was this the traditional, did it break into the extended slap strike sequences and, forearms to the chest and chops somewhat? But was it like the epic level that you historically would, have come to know from a New Japan House style main event? No, but here's another thing that I thought was really impressive about this match. Some people would be like, okay, so the broad portions of the first 2/3 of the match really just revolve around 3 moves, essentially. There's not a lot of high flying. There's not a lot of flips. Like, are these guys going out there and doing now? Don't get me wrong. I don't think that they are incapable of doing the athletic style of wrestling that guys in the West are doing. Like, were they going out there and doing the kind of creative things that they do in Mexico? Or like, for instance, like when Swerve wrestled, when he returned and he wrestled Bandito, they did some stuff that I've never seen before and was like blown away. Did they do stuff like that? No. But here's one thing that's important. By the time that Uemura was able to go to the top rope and hit his lion shiner, no one had gone to the top rope. And the crowd was believing that meant it could be a finisher. So the importance of what they were doing, the anticipation was so much higher. And not only that, these guys were kicking out of each other's finishers. We saw the deadbolt. We saw the shining elbow. We saw the lion shiner. We saw this guy hit the fucking discus lariat. Like, they were basically it putting the first 2/3 aside. If you're watching the final stretch, there's that idea of like a WrestleMania level match where you have to have a bunch of kickouts and finishes and false finishes and all that. Bro, they did that, Yeah. But if you don't know what their moves are, it might not mean as much to you because maybe, because you're not conditioned to know what they're doing. But for me and for you and for what we've seen in this tournament and what we've learned can finish a match, bro, like there were so many, I was biting on so many of the false finishes. Mm-hmm. And then these guys kept, bro, there was like around the 20-25 minute mark, I thought this match could be over. Once it hit 30, I thought it could be over, and they kept going. And then the exhaustion, it became like a war of attrition to where I'm like, oh my, anybody can win at any time. Couple last final things. The crowd support of Oiwa throughout the final courses of this match, maybe even through the halfway point. I felt a little bad for Yuya because it's like a lot of people are anticipating for Yuya to be the guy, and he's getting drowned out with, I didn't hear any support for him. And that's not like no shade. I'm a big Yuya fan, but
yeah,
this
there was one point during commentary where, I think Charlton was like asking Walker, what do you think about the crowd? And Walker was trying to say, I hear some Yuya, but a lot of Oiwa. Nope. And Charlton was like, no, I'm hearing more. It sounds like it's like 90-10 Oiwa. And yeah, that's what it sounded like, especially obviously with the emotional Tenzan link. And both nights, Oiwa did come out with his own Tenzan horns, and so people know the connection. Tenzan's right there on commentary. This man's crying. He's pulling Tanahashi, crying at the greatness of the match, and there's that emotional link. So the crowd was super invested in Oiwa.
Down the stretch, when these guys have thrown everything out there that they have, and all of that, and the other thing too is Yuya never stopped going for the arm. Like, him going for the arm opens up other things, like his arm submission finishers, his deadbolt suplex.
Right.
And these were all things that he was basically conditioning Oiwa to. Not only was it a defense, it was an offense. And then finally for Oiwa to just power through that and basically, like I said, a war of attrition, outlast this guy. Like, take everything he has and then keep coming forward and then find ways to get back into that headlock and then just crank it. Red Shoes put in one of the best performances of his career here. There were I know he's always fantastic, but the way he was moving from a body standpoint, I thought he was finishing the match many times during the big lock sequences. And finally, we got to the point where it's like the crowd is ecstatic. He's got him in the big lock. It's the middle of the ring. In years past, you would have imagined like, no, he's going to get to the ropes, but he's cranking on this shit. And then finally, Uemura is just like, he taps out. And I was like, oh my God, they fucking did it, bro.
Yeah.
This is a 5-star classic. And for me, when I don't go higher than 5, when I go 5 on a match, it means to me that this is one of the greatest matches in the history of the sport of professional wrestling. I have other things to say about the responses people have about it, but that is as concise a recap I can give you. And really speaks to the themes and importance of what they did and why it mattered and how beautiful the fucking match is.
Yeah. And I will say, I did love Oiwa's comments in the press today, because I think a lot of people who are against this match or this style of match are worried that this is what every match is going to look like. And Oiwa straight up said in the press, he's like, I don't want every match to look like this. He's like, only me and Yuya can do a match like this. He's like, everybody has their own strengths and are going to have different styles. But the thing is, we want everybody to perfect their style and showcase their style of wrestling. He's like, this is me and Uemura. So I'm kind of, paraphrasing here, but essentially he's kind of saying like, not every match is going to look like this because only so many people can do this specific style of match. But we're kind of allowing it to where, everybody can kind of show off their style of match.
Well, you and I have said for many years that like the vast majority of professional wrestlers in the world can't do a young lion match in and of itself. Just, a young lion basic match, most professional wrestlers that are out there, they're incapable of doing that grounded match. This is an extension of what that style is, but perfected and brought to the highest levels. Here's one thing that's important, Jeremy, is like, number one, just because they're not doing the same level of, high risk maneuvers as to what maybe, say a Will Ospreay match. Cause I think that that's something where a lot of people are going to compare the two, is like Will is, known as the best wrestler in the world. He's kind of the poster boy, him and Kenny Omega in AEW. And maybe you're not seeing the same level of like high. And here's the thing. This is just a sample size. This tournament was chock full of matches where that sort of stuff was happening. And in fact, these two guys were involved in many of those matches. Like you were just alluding to, this is a match they had with each other. It's not, a shift in the style, but just because they're not going out there and doing that stuff, it doesn't mean that the match is not at. Now, I know that wrestling is subjective, but when the crowd that is there is that responsive to what is happening in front of you and the stakes and emotions, because, bro, here's the thing. Wrestling is storytelling. And when the storytelling is that compelling, it honestly, it's not about the moves. People think it is about the moves, and that is a Pavlovian response that they have been trained to believe, because they think like high risk maneuvers, the crowd gets an ooh and an ah. And I'm not saying those things aren't important. They're not cool. They're not good, but it's how and when you use them. But if you can get basic moves over to the same level, the match is as good. The storytelling is as good or possibly better. But the other thing too is wrestling has become so homogenized to where we're talking about the risk of companies like CMLL moving to a more Western-based, presentation, and as the global presentation of professional wrestling, as you know, we got rid of the territory system, and now with streaming, everybody wrestles everywhere and sees everything. There's this risk of it all just being very samey across the board and kind of just emulating what guys in WWE and AEW do, and it all just kind of becoming very indie-rific. The idea that New Japan is investing not only in the young guys, but in what makes their dojo system special and differentiating it from what other people are doing, that is only a betterment to their brand, because here's the thing. Most of the guys that are doing the type of wrestling that people want to see came from this company. I'm not saying they're all dojo grown, but they came from here and then they left and now they're gone. And so people are complaining because the talent that they have here, truth be told, generational talents like Kota Ibushi and Kenny Omega and Tetsuya Naito, most people in the world historically have never been able to do what they can do. So the expectation that you want all of these young talents to be stars, but also be able to do everything that they can do, it's just not going to happen. But the idea that these guys can go out there, make themselves stars and do what they can do, and what they can do are things that those guys couldn't do and that the rest of the wrestling world cannot do, is a thing that makes the company special. It makes those talents unique and special. And it is, for me, and this is the last thing I'll say about this topic, wrestling is a spectrum and it has a wide variety of styles. And you know, you can have a match that is literally just a death match with almost no wrestling moves, and it can be a classic. You can have a match that is, just a spot like the TLC match from WrestleMania 17, which is, a Demolition Derby. There are, you can have a lucha 2 out of 3 falls, whether it's a walk-in brawl, mask, bloody match, or whether it's the Maestro match, it doesn't matter. There are so many different types of stylings of professional wrestling and what it can be, what it is, and everything like that. For me, though, when wrestling is sporting, when it is emulating what a real sporting contest is, proving who is the best, that's when, for me, it's the best. And this is the closest thing to that we have seen in many, many years. Don't get me wrong. I do love AEW. I love a lot of the things that they do. And I know that that's going to be the dichotomy here, is like comparing like Swerve and Hangman and Osprey and everything like that. And if that's what you like the most, absolutely. Those guys are fantastic. And this is totally different. Mm-hmm. But if everybody is out there just doing that, which to me, in some ways, I'm not a what's his name? I'm not a Jim Cornette guy. Right. And I'm not like video game ass wrestlers or whatever. I've heard that thing, but there is a point to where wrestling does become kind of Power Rangers. It does kind of become anime. It becomes Goku, and there's nothing wrong with that, but there does have to be some groundedness as to what makes professional wrestling sport. And sometimes what those guys are doing is not sport. It is just power scaling. And this is much, much closer to what the Four Kings did in All Japan. This is so much closer to what the Musketeers were doing in the 90s. This screams to me 70s All Japan Pro Wrestling, and I understand. I think that anyone who thinks this is a regression is so short-sighted and misunderstands the elements of what makes pro wrestling work and is special.
Yeah. Well, we got about 30 minutes left here, and there's a lot of questions. So let's try to run through these.
Yeah, we'll run through those.
So Rambo and Slam Tick says, "We gripping boys." Yeah, I mean,
I think for a long time, our biggest complaints about Oiwa, I'll be honest, and Jeremy, maybe you can speak to this. I've always been higher on Oiwa than you. Since he came back, now I've never been totally sold. There have been, for me, I've seen holes in the game, and I didn't necessarily love the original version of the grip. But I've been higher on him. And for you, you've been many times where people are like, this is the guy, this is the guy, this is the guy. And you're like, I'm not told. You've been a fan, but you haven't been totally sold.
Yeah, because I think from day one, people are like, oh, he's the next ace. And I'm like, he's very good, but I wasn't seeing it just yet. And I think there were some things that he wasn't fully clicking just yet. Like now I think he kind of fully understands who he is. There is a meaning, I think, behind the grip nickname now. Like I know he was doing the lariat, but honestly, I feel like the implementation now of the big lock makes the grip nickname make so much more sense now. And I just feel like, I think he's more of a full performer than he was when he first came back from Excursion.
I agree.
He says, how do you feel this tournament as a whole will be looked at in retrospect? Do you believe this will be seen as a key moment when the next era of New Japan began to solidify?
I do. I think that this is the turning point for where this company has needed to be. Easily the best, and we've been saying this from the beginning, but it's bore itself out. The best G1 Climax since before the pandemic. And honestly, Jeremy, bolts to nuts. One of the best G1s we have ever covered,
bro.
Regardless of when.
I was thinking that I was trying to think back. Our first G1 that we reviewed would have been 2018, and so looking through 2018 to now, I'm like, this is in contention for the top 3 G1s that we've reviewed in the era of this show. Easily.
I agree.
Easily.
I agree.
Les Commission says, throughout all the Ryohei guys, are you surprised that Oiwa was the first to win the G1?
Shocked. And it's the ballsiest fucking move. I'm shocked.
Yeah, I would have for sure thought that, Uemura, Umino, Tsuji would have been one of the first Ryohei guys to win the G1. And again, who knows what the Umino injury did to this tournament.
Well, I'll tell you, Jeremy, this is the speculation. This is what I've heard over the weekend. The belief is that Uemura was never supposed to be in this spot. Oiwa was always going to win, and it was going to be Shota losing in the finals to Oiwa. That's the belief. And it is a little bit unfortunate. I think this match does a lot for Yuya, but it is unfortunate the fact that he has lost both major tournaments in the same calendar year. The only other person that's done is Goto.
Well, Samson put out a thing of there's a list of guys who have lost both in 1 year. Let me see if I can find.
Okay, I thought it was just Goto. If not, then the last person was Goto.
Yeah, let me see if I can find that exact.
And I think that was 2016.
Yeah, let's see here.
It definitely is possible. Now that I think about it, it's possible that there could have been others. Although I have to assume it's pretty rare, nonetheless.
Yeah. And of course, now I cannot find that.
That's all right. We don't have to correct me.
Here we go. So he says, Uemura joins Goto in 2016 as the second wrestler to lose New Japan Cup and G1 final matches in the same calendar year. Uemura is the 6th wrestler to participate in the New Japan Cup and G1 Climax finals in the same year. Gotcha.
Yeah,
so
see?
Yeah, so
I was right.
Yeah, so I guess I was remembering there was a list and I was forgetting what the list was, but there were guys that have competed in both, but they at least won one. So in 2007, Nagata won the New Japan Cup. 2011, Nakamura won the G1. 2014, he won the New Japan Cup. 2016, Goto lost both. 2018, Tanahashi won the G1. 2024, Tsuji won the New Japan Cup. And then 2026, Uemura lost both.
Next question from Les Commission.
He says, I am 2/5 on my prediction this year. As I said, Yuya would win the G1 after this classic final. Should Tsuji even be in the conversation of main eventing the Dome and instead run back Oiwa and Yuya if Oiwa captures the title at KOPW?
I can't say for sure what's going to happen, but I'm of the belief that Tsuji is going to go into the Tokyo Dome as champion, and there's even a chance he might walk out as champion. When it's all said and done. And
go ahead.
We didn't mention, but Oiwa did cut a post-match promo and declare that he will be challenging at King of Pro Wrestling for his title match. And honestly, I think there's a very good chance he will be the first person
to fail
to fail there, which it has to happen eventually. And I think this is probably where it will happen.
Yeah, and I've seen a little bit of Tsuji slander since after this match, and I'm like, as great as this match was, there is no doubt in my mind that Yota Tsuji is the MVP of the tournament. I'm sorry, this was an incredible final, great match, but Tsuji's whole G1 was banger after banger after banger, and easily established himself as a top guy. So I get people want to grip, they want to feel the heat of the heat storm, but Yota Tsuji is still the man, and I think that he should be in that main event of the Wrestle Kingdom. Next question from Whistler Zombie. I do not get Yuya Uemura. To me, it seems like he has all the separate ingredients of a great wrestler, but lacks the essential it factor that is difference between Stunning Steve and Stone Cold. Is it a me thing? The files make me think it's not, since I do think Oiwa's whole persona gets into a complete wrestler that Yuya doesn't, and the crowd agree with me. Am I misreading things, or does Yuya seem like the most generic Ryohei guy right now?
We've had criticisms about his crowd connection, and I think he's taken steps to improve that. I think that having a match the caliber and quality of this can do nothing but help him. But I do think there's something lacking there. I'm not as down on him as this guy is, as this listener, Whistler Zombie, but I think there's a hole there. But I think he's still so valuable, and still so these rivalries that are getting set up amongst these Reiwa guys, they would be so boring without Yuya. Yuya is a key component to what they're building, and I'm still firmly a supporter.
Yeah, for me, and I mentioned this on the previous show, I do think there is something, at least for me, that I do kind of lack some kind of connection with Yuya since his return from Excursion. I feel like I connected more with him as a young lion than I ever have since he's been back. However, he does go out there and have performances like this. I thought the New Japan Cup final with Newman was great. So, he's capable of great performances, but I do think there is something either character-wise or presentation-wise, and I kind of feel like he's leaning a little too much into Tanahashi-ism right now. And so, I do think there's something missing, but he's still great. Next question here, make way for Slide. What a difference a year makes. A lot of the newer folks had great matches last year, but everyone kicked it up a notch this year. Comparing the finals from last year to this year is particularly stark. Do you think the reaction to Catch the Evil last year led to a greater reliance on the newer generation this year? Alternatively, was it just a matter of the newer group hitting their stride at around the same time?
I think it's conjecture, but I think that neither of those things are exclusively, exclusive of one another. That they could both be the case, but I also think that some of this might have to do with the ownership change. But I do think that he mentioned kind of coincide. I do think that people kind of rejected Evil versus Takeshita versus now all these young guys are kind of hitting at the right time. Series of questions here from Death Triangle 720. Do you think for 3 years in a row having the winner of the G1 challenge before Wrestle Kingdom is a good idea? Can't get into it too much, but I think that we've talked on the show a lot about the positives and the negatives of those two methods. I I'm not opposed to it. I mean, like, I liked what they did before, but I think that this new, and it seems like going forward, this is probably what it's going to be. I think that this can definitely work, and it opens up new creative opportunities. And I think that as long as the audience isn't conditioned to believing that this has to, be an automatic 1/4 thing, and the expectation becomes it's an October thing, I think it's okay.
Yeah, especially, we've mentioned too, you look back in the history of G1 Climax, like the Wrestle Kingdom thing started with Okada's 2012 win, but you look back throughout history, there were several, August, September, October, January, like it wasn't always a Tokyo Dome thing. And I do think there is, I don't think you want to heavily rely on it being October every year. Because then again, then that gets old too. But I do think it's a shakeup, and it's kind of like the defining thing of this era of where they're going with the title match. He also said, "Would you agree that this G1 Climax final was the best presentation of the new generation?"
Absolutely.
Yeah. He says, "Let's say Oiwa loses against Tsuji. What do you think he can do from there?"
Jeremy, I'm not opposed to the idea that he loses in October and is able to work his way back to a title shot come January 4th and win the title. I think that something like that is very much possible considering the crowd support he has. And if that is a match that could sell the most amount of tickets, then maybe that's where they go. If not, there's no way that Oiwa as the G1 winner isn't doing something of note, whether it's, I think he's going to be either in a big name match or challenging for some sort of singles title.
Right. I think, going for the global title would be a great position for him. Or also, there is potentially something there with Zack Sabre Jr. and, as a student out growing the master. And I think a showdown with him could be at the Dome could be great as well. And also he says, do you think it's likely that we see a Yuya versus Oya rematch at Wrestle Kingdom? Yuya has a win over Tsuji. He can definitely challenge after Goto's match.
No, I don't think so.
Yeah, I think he's not really looking at the full counter because, the Goto Tsuji match is September, then Tsuji Oiwa will be October. That only really leaves you Power Struggle. And I guess that you could do Yuya Tsuji there, but I don't know. There's also Bolton who's got a title shot in his pocket too. So, it's possible, but I don't know.
We have a question from MJ Does PR. Let's kick that one. I would like to dedicate some time to that. Maybe let's do that one next week.
Okay. That dude named Minute says Oil win the title in October.
I've been counting him out for a while now. I didn't think he was going to beat Takeshita last week. I sure as hell didn't think he's going to win the G1. Could he win the title in October if they really want to strap the rocket to him? Absolutely. Yeah. I'm not counting on it. I think he's losing there because I just think for how much they've pushed him, it just makes sense that he would lose the first title shot and then chase. That's just what I think.
Yeah, and I know that Gato has been changing some stuff up, but I still think he relies on, the heartbreak, the tragedy, to get people over. And so, yeah, I think, he got some triumph here, but the heartbreak is coming. And I think the heartbreak does help get Simpy and get people over. And so, yeah, I could see him losing. But again, it might be a don't count out the grip kind of scenario. And so I would be surprised if he won, but it'd be a good surprise. Games K90210 says, where do they go from here with Yuya?
If it was me, I would say because he lost both of these tournaments, it puts him in a prime position to potentially win one of those tournaments next year. And if they handle him properly and if things align, I don't see any reason why he couldn't potentially win one of those tournaments. And that would have to sort of be his, his storyline. It's like, I failed these 2 times. I need to redeem myself. I don't see any reason why he couldn't win one of those tournaments. And if there's enough momentum, win the title and that be his redemption arc story. Although who knows, Shota Umino might have something to say about that.
Yeah. I think for the remainder of this year, I mean, again, you could potentially have him challenge Tsuji at Power Struggle. Again, I think the global title is something that's been underutilized for this generation.
For Yuya?
What?
Oh, you're saying Yuya. Okay, I get it, because he beat Tsuji in the semis.
Right, yeah. So he could challenge at Power Struggle if they don't do like Bolton. But I do feel like the global title...
Or Sonata.
Yeah. I do feel like the global title has been underutilized for this generation, and it is kind of heating up with the Gabe and Drilla stuff and the Gabe and Umino stuff, but I do think the global title could be utilized as another top title, and I think having that on a guy like Yuya Uemura, who's trying to find his footing and trying to find his place, could be good. Next, Astronaut 623. How does Uemura work his way back into Wrestle Kingdom main event and against Oiwa with the title?
I think we've kind of addressed that. I don't think he will.
Yeah. Doc says, first G1 finals with folks born in the 90s, and JPW pushing young guys more than any U.S. company. How does it feel to accept Sanshiro Takagi is saving wrestling?
They're pushing young guys.
Yeah. Ginger Infringer says, with Oiwa seemingly challenging at KOPW, is it crazy that the least confident I've been in G1 winner winning the title for Wrestle Kingdom the last 2 years when Takeshita and Zack challenged? I was practically 100% certain they were winning, but this year I could easily see Tsuji retaining, and we get him versus Umino or Uemura at Wrestle Kingdom. It's not really a question there, but more of a...
It's not a question, but I agree with that logic.
Yeah.
And I agree.
He says, follow up, if Oiwa doesn't win the title, do you think he could get a singles match between him and Zack of the Dome?
Yes.
Yeah, I think that's an easy layup right there. Then he says, how would you rank this G1 among the other ones this decade?
It's the best G1 in the 2020s.
Yeah, easily. Dragon Master Adam says, now that Yuya and Oiwa are basically nailed on to be generational rivals, how quickly do you go back to the rematch? Should they capitalize on the buzz and have Oiwa win the title at KOPW and then run a rematch at Wrestle Kingdom? Or should they continue with the Tsuji and Umino pushes while keeping an Oiwa-Yuya rematch for down the line?
I wouldn't be surprised if Yuya and Oiwa open the G1 Climax next year.
Yeah, I think that could be a great match. I mean, if they see money in it for the Dome, there are ways, title, non-title, to get to that. I also think there's obviously a link there between Uemura and Umino. There's links between Uemura and Tsuji. So there's a lot of different things they can do at the Dome. But yeah, I think that either way, I'd be fine if they try to save it for down the line or try to run it back sooner. Nayo says, who raised their stock the most this G1 in your eyes? Who has become your special little guy this tournament? I gotta say, Oscar is growing on me tremendously.
Raise their stock, it's Oiwa. And there's a few others, but it's Oiwa. Special little guy, Yuto Ice, Bombaclot.
Yeah, I would also throw out Bolton. That's another guy that has raised his stock for me. And yeah, I think, Yuto Ice, has to be the special guy. Live Valley B381. Other than Oiwa, who are your biggest winners and losers coming out of the G1 heading towards Wrestle Kingdom?
Biggest winners, Oleg Bolton. I think Sonata. I would say Callum even. Drilla.
Yeah.
Biggest losers, Great Okan.
Narita.
Narita. Jeremy, I would say, and this might sound a little controversial, I know I'm like kind of going along with some of the new Hadim, but once I give it some thought, I'd say Gabe Kidd.
Really?
In terms of the expectations that are on a talent like him in the position he's at with that white belt and the output and the reception, I just don't think that it's what you would expect from someone the level of his name.
Yeah, I would kind of put him in the middle because I do still think he had some great matches, but yeah, I think maybe
I'm grading on a curve because of who he is, not because I don't think he had a bad tournament, but I'm grading based on what are the expectations of someone like him versus what he did.
Yeah. And then
other losers, Goto.
Next question here from Pussy Destroyer 13479.
Pussy Destroyer.
What do you consider was the best match in this year's G1?
The final.
For me, I still have Tsuji and Takeshita as my best match of the tournament by a quarter star margin. Staleburger Bun says, was Bushiroad holding NJPW back?
I've wondered about that. I can't say for sure that's the case. I do wonder how much they might have had a say in creative, but I feel like the more likely aspect of it is Gato just being fucking fed up with his bosses and now has a little bit of, some room to breathe. I don't even know. I can't say it's like creative, like that, the executives are jumping into the creative, but maybe this guy just feels like, oh, that's a weight off my shoulders. Let's get back to business.
Yeah, and maybe that's the case. Because it does seem like they're this year, and it kind of started trending last year, but it does feel like we're kind of moving into a fresh direction, and there are some changes. We're seeing some young guys getting pushed, and yeah, there's a lot of great stuff happening in the company right now. Last note here, across all 19 shows of the tour, New Japan drew 50,487, and this is the biggest total since 2023, which is roughly a 17% jump over last year's 43,078. And I know
that's huge.
Yeah.
One other thing, we didn't put it in here, but they did the fan awards.
Yeah.
I know the Technique Award, I believe Oiwa won that.
Yes, and then Yuto Ice won, I think, the Fighting Spirit, and Bolton won, I think, Best Performance, something like that, like a performance award.
One last thing too. It's probably been lost on a lot of people, but Oiwa was not listed in the 16 names when they announced the G1. He was a play-in guy,
right? Yeah,
he's the first person that had to play in to earn his spot and go to the finals and win this shit.
Yeah,
first time.
That's a
short-lived concept. They haven't done it for a long time, but no one that's won their way in has ever done this.
Right, he ain't playing in next year. Yeah, so that was awesome. And so I know you want to grade everybody here before we wrapped up. So let's.
I don't know that we have the time to do that.
Okay.
What do we got going? Next week.
Well, we got plenty of time next week because Destruction and stuff doesn't kick off till September 6th. So I was going to have us dive into all the match announcements next week for what's coming up.
Let's give our grades there, and then perhaps we're not going to do. It's going to be a week's delayed. We don't have to review those block nights, but maybe you can run through your like star rating totals and stuff like that on those nights, and we can kind of just do a quick recap there because we're gonna have some time next week anyways.
Yeah, so we'll do grades next week. I can even do like our top 10 matches of the tournament, and then there was a bunch of stuff announced this morning for Destruction in Kobe, for Battle Line Hokkaido. So there's a lot of stuff coming up, and so we'll have more time to jump into that next week as well.
Awesome. Well, it's been a pleasure, Jeremy. Play us out, but I'm going to go feed my dog.
All right. Well, next week we'll be back to discuss the announcements of Destruction Tour, and we'll give our final G1 grades and top 10 matches and cover all its news. Remember, if you want to watch our show live or listen without ads, sign up at patreon.com/KI Strong Style. You can also make a donation by visiting socialsuplex.com/donate and clicking the donate button under the Keepin It Strong Style logo. Make sure to connect with us on social media on X and Blue Sky. Follow us at KI Strong Style, at Socialsuplex, at Donovan, at YB_Josh and Liger. On Facebook, follow us at facebook.com/Socialsuplex and the US Wrestling Explorer Total Facebook group. On Reddit, on the Pro Black Guy. And Josh is Keeping It Strong Style on YouTube. We're at Social Suplex. Join our Social Suplex Discord server to interact with us and other wrestling fans. You can email me, Jeremy, at socialsuplex.com. And check out all those shows that we have here on the Social Suplex Podcast Network. One Nation Radio with Rachel out of Indian Floyd. All things Elite with Floyd and Austin. Imps, AEW Adventure. Wrestling Art Chris Sings, the AEW Match Guy with Sir Sam Brown. Tone Talk with Ali and Leah. The Trish and Sarah Wrestling Podcast. And Joshing Around with Tim and Eric. Don't forget to subscribe and leave a rating and review. And we will catch you next week on Keeping It Strong Style, the ace of podcasts. Ichiban.
Thank you for listening to Keepin' It Strong Style. We'll see you next time.